Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first of many budget meetings on the mayor's proposed 2024 budget. This evening, we will be going over a PowerPoint that Andy, our comptroller, has. If we could lower the volume, please. So Andy is coming for a PowerPoint. Tonight we'll be going over the comptroller's office, city clerk's office, city council, city auditor, and the office of assessment, cash receipts, contracts, and procurement, and personnel. But without further ado, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going into a quick roll call. Councilmember Go.
Here.
Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember Steele. Councilmember Mitt. Here. Councilmember Conley Winston. Councilmember Soriano. Here. Council President Mantello is here. We have all been present. I'm going to open up the agenda. We're going to do it a little backwards, but not totally. A couple of things have to go. So before the PowerPoint, we are going to go through two departments, and that is the city clerk's office and the office of assessor. So let's first, Maria, is our city clerk. Why don't you take it away? And Maria, I'd love to hear maybe a 2-minute regarding what you've recognized over the past year. I'd like to hear your observation with our agreement with the Mohawk Humane Society. I know it's a tough one. And additionally, what you foresee going into 2024. So thank you.
So we met with Mohawk month and a half ago or so. We went there and they gave a PowerPoint presentation about the animals that they pick up from the city, some different procedures that they're doing differently in the over the last year and a half and what was done prior, and just an uptick in dogs mostly that they've been picking up, and what they think is going to happen moving forward. Obviously more dogs. You are not allowed to just drop off your pet to Mohawk anymore. You have to call animal control or the police department for them to come and pick it up. So that definitely stopped a lot of dogs being dropped off there. There's obviously a cost associated with all of these things. We charge $145 is typically what it costs for someone to come and redeem their dog. And I would say, I was talking to the girls about it. I mean, anybody that calls and asks about redeeming their dog, 90% of those people come and pay the fees and redeem their dog, no matter what the fees are. There are people that don't call at all and don't inquire about getting back their dogs. Moving forward, there's a new contract. I believe it's still being worked out, or did it get signed? So, yeah, so, it's a lot more money. It's probably more than double than what was in the budget prior years. It's a completely different contract than what we had prior. It's going to be on a per dog basis. So every single dog that goes through is going to be a problem. So expensive. Whereas before it didn't matter, 10 dogs or 300 dogs, that's what the price was, but now every single one is going to count. There's going to be a fee associated with it. There are different fees in different situations. If a dog doesn't get picked up, if it has to be euthanized, if it gets taken away to a different place, there's different fees with each different situation. That's probably going to be the biggest change for Mohawk. I believe it's gonna be like a year-to-year thing too. I don't know if anything's gonna change.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. Councilmember Gully.
Maria, was there any mention of the expense we're gonna face by now having all the dogs picked up by our police officers and all the dogs picked up by our animal control? Because now the city's gonna get more of an expense now that people can't take it down there. So are they looking at that and are we mentioning that to them to try to understand that we're facing more fees also?
I, have my own opinions.
We'll leave it at that for now.
Well, I'll just say, I think it's foolish to make that a rule or a law that an officer or an animal control officer, because there's a lot of people that are capable
Their rule.
and able, right, their rule. So that's what they put in the contract. We haven't signed that contract.
Well, that's what it's been for the last, I can't remember exactly when it changed while I've been here, but let's call it maybe 6 months in, 4 months in, I can't exactly remember when. But, of course, we were all still learning in the beginning too, so it all kind of just like, one day it was like, this can't happen anymore, kind of thing.
Okay, well, that's something that's good.
And then just so you know, the fee obviously hasn't changed for redeeming dogs. And in case we didn't know, each time, because we have people that their dogs get out and go to the Mohawk multiple times, the fee goes up for them each time. So first time offender is always the same typically, because usually their dog's not licensed, and then they license the dog. That's when it's usually 145, and then let's say it happens 2 to 3 more times, it goes up each time. But that first initial fee hasn't changed. It's not, hasn't been talked about to get changed. But again, my own opinion.
Thank you, on that front, Maria. I mean, it's not a good situation. I know a lot of folks, are, advocating and speaking to the county to hopefully, maybe something, originate on the county level of something, be built, but obviously that's nothing in the near future. But I mean, it really is a dilemma because right now, there is only game
Game in town.
in town. It's certainly something, we need to keep our eye on. All right,
And we do also, that there is a number that, we did come up with to have in the budget, which is, I think, 275. Because we do also have to pay for, any dog that's found on the side of the road or anything like that, and it needs emergency, surgery, emergency services at all, and gets brought to an emergency clinic, we have to pay for that as well. So there have been a couple instances where the owner of that dog has been found, wants to come redeem their dog, and I have added it to their tab. Because they can pay for it.
okay, Maria, what about, why don't you go through your budget? Thank you.
I increased all of our supplies, we have to order a lot of things, a lot of our envelopes, a lot of our dog tags. A lot of things have to get ordered, I saw something, so I had to like look over past things, and I was looking over invoices from a few years ago to now, and some stuff has literally doubled from the places that I've had to get them from. It's crazy, just like everything else. So I increased some of the stuff there, printing, advertising, contracts for the system that we use in the clerk's office. E-code, that's where whenever things get passed here, certain things we have to put in our E-code. So increases there. My salary for my staff didn't get increased.
Can you talk about that quickly with the?
So from what I understand, Upsu's contract is done as of 2023. There is not a contract being talked about. I don't know who there is because the person that was our, I don't know, liaison, I guess we'll call him, is no longer with the city of Troy. So I don't know who talked about that contract. There's not a lot of people that are in Upsu that work for the city of Troy. I believe it's less than 10. two of my staff being two of them. So,
And Angie, I don't believe any of those two yet have been proposed to be increased, correct?
Any build up to position does not have, excuse me, contractual raise for next year pending that contract being negotiated.
How do, they negotiate if they don't have a liaison?
So they still have, so up to itself still has representatives for negotiations. They have sent an information request to us, which is usually precursor to them asking to come in and negotiate. We're working on getting that information turned back to them. At what point the negotiations commence. Who the city rep is after Chris, Chris Well was the upsuit rep. I have not heard if there has been a replacement yet for Chris. But they do still have representation from the organization itself who made the information.
Angie, can you send us the positions that are in upsuit?
Yes.
Thank you. Maria, the one thing I did see, you did touch upon it. I noticed, and I want to ask Andy, did you ask the department to keep it flat? Or did you, not in terms of salary, I'm talking about materials, postage, et cetera? Because I did notice a majority were flat.
Some of them were reduced later in the process. But I would say for most departments this year, they requested the same amount as the prior year. There was not a lot of fluctuation, I would say, in like 301 and 303 accounts.
Okay. You know, like, can you tell me in the clerk's office, you didn't do the third quarter, but do we have a pretty good estimate? Are we, driving to, the 1250? Like say for office supplies or, I just want to make sure, that we're, not asking for more if we don't need it and.
Year to date, office supplies in the clerk's office is $311.
What about postage? Oh, no. I'll tell you, Vizio is the worst. I have no luck with Vizio TV.
well, we're still like live.
Thank you.
Postage year to
That's
date,
the Vizio.
postage through September 30th is $700. Total postage spent to date in the clerk's office is $700.
Okay, so we might be able to bring them down a little, not down, but at least keep them flat the last year. Okay, we'll take a look at that. Okay. Maria, anything else you want to hit upon? Maria, how's, the council member seal, and then I want to just hear, dog licenses, the revenue. Go ahead, council member seal.
Thank you. So, Maria, it looks like you have requested a 4% increase.
Yeah, I actually originally gave all of us the 4% increase, because from what I understood prior to making this budget was that's what everyone got every single year. Because that's what, when I was doing the budget last year, that's what was in the notes from previous years. So I went with the same thing, but then it was told to me afterwards that that was not the case and that the contract is done as of this year.
And when you prepare the budget, you do it yourself. You're not in conjunction with any member of the council.
No,
No.
she runs her.
Yeah.
Well, we oversee the clerk. The clerk runs the department. Council member Man.
So, and maybe this is both Maria and Andy, so 409, $223 consultant services. It looks like we are more than doubling, close to tripling. Back from 2023, which is 105,000 to 275,000, that's basically.
Right.
Yeah, I think you mean.
So, yeah, that's $250,000 for the Humane Society based on the contract proposal. That's currently being negotiated, and then it's about $25,000 for the other the emergency services that Maria run.
Gotcha. And the just general 409 consultant services. Was that from,
That's our auditor, that's funded it. Oh, no,
no,
I'm sorry.
that was the previous city clerk advising.
Correct.
So that is why that's out of it. So the Humane Society cost is reflected in the state. That makes sense. Yeah.
Any other questions that Maria, did you want to add anything else? No, well, no. Okay. We'll move on. We'll go to, Sharon. Want to join us, Sharon? I guess, so are we on YouTube?
Yeah,
Verbally, but not visually. Hi, Sharon.
No,
We are, thank you. I think it's just these two guys there should.
Wire right here. Like I was doing it the other night. Yeah, because this is losing it. You gotta get another,
Might be.
now I would lose it.
Thank you, Jen. Your new IT, no, no, it's still, flickering. Why don't you tape it? Yeah. Some duct tape.
Okay.
My technology.
You had it.
There you go. Don't move.
They're on page 30 and 30.
Page 39.
Sharon, wanna take us away?
Sure, where would you like me to start?
Like you just go line by line, go over your permanent salary. All the good, just take us through that'd be awesome.
Okay.
And then if you could just talk about what you feel, is transpired in 2023, where you want to go in 2024, and how you're, I know there was through, the budget and additional employee, how that's working out. Maybe also talk about, here Realty, how we have them marketing a couple of the major properties, Leonard Hospital, Falling. Love to hear status on that and, some other good stuff. Thank you.
Okay. So, this past year, one of my longtime employees retired. And I hired another new employee, so one I hired last year and one I hired this year. That's why you'll see in my training budget that it went up slightly, because I want to get them both trained and up to speed as soon as possible.
Okay, I'm sorry, that is really annoying. Can we just turn the TV? If we're on, we're being.
I'm just thinking with Andy got the power.
Oh, right.
Color copy.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah. Thanks, Sharon. Sorry about that.
That's okay. let's see, so my salary line went down slightly because the retirement. Everything else stayed pretty much the same from last year. My commercial appraisals went up slightly because, one appraisal for a tax cert could cost anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000. So as our equalization rate falls and the commercial properties go up in value on paper, they're gonna start to continue to take us to court. So actually, you'll see a budget adjustment in the future because I'm running short this year.
What are we up to, Nancy? If you think? Or Sharon, if you have the number.
So I have,
$18,750 has been spent. And I believe there's invoices pending that need to be paid once that legislation gets submitted with the transfer.
Sharon, do we still have guard doing the commercial appraisal?
nope,
They're done.
we have Steve Clark, for Empire State Appraisal. Dan likes to work with him because he not only does the appraisal, but he also testifies at court and he's really good on the stand. So he's the person that we use.
I'm gonna let- Background.
And, yeah, the training, how much have we used to date, Nancy?
So I just went to a conference and it cost about $1,200. The city will get that money back from New York State. Unfortunately, it doesn't go back into my budget. It goes into the general fund. So,
That's the end. Did anyone have questions? Health insurance,
We're gonna talk.
not your fault, right,
Kyle.
overall, Councilmember Min.
Karen, I know that we had talked about doing countywide reassessment because our assessment rate is out of date already. But we're not in as dire shape as some other cities throughout the county. Has there been any movement on the county level to do it comprehensively?
there has not been. Certain mayors or supervisors have contacted the county executive. We haven't heard anything promising yet. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that our equalization rate has fallen to 70%, and it will go down again next year because our sales are still strong. We need to do an equity project to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share.
Yeah, and it's good that our sale prices are so strong. And, but it is something that I know. Our last reassessment cost $1 million.
1.2, I think.
1.2 million, and we had a ton of tertiary sales.
Right, so plus for cost.
Right.
Um,
An equity project wouldn't cost us much because our data is good. We have all the data, we have all the photos, we have all of that.
Yeah.
So it would be a fraction of the cost just for valuation.
and do you have a rough guesstimate what an equity project might end up costing?
Somewhere between 250 and 300. But the more municipalities that we have involved, the better we'll be.
Yeah. And you think it would be something, if the county's not willing to step up and do a countywide reassessment, Troy taking the lead with other municipalities that are interested in doing that, and being able to negotiate a better rate from Rivers City Assessment.
Absolutely.
You want to take on that project?
Okay,
All right, well, that's good. I mean,
well, you know, Poston Hill's already in the middle of a project, Sand Lake for next year, Poston Hill. Sand Lake is gonna do one for 25. East Greenbush is talking about it. The City of Rensselaer wants to do one as well. They have some money in the budget, but it's not nearly enough. So there's a lot of interest, but nobody has pulled the trigger, except for Poston Hill and supposedly Sand Lake, but I haven't seen that in stone.
and their equalization rate is like,
Right.
I mean, certainly after the craziness, but real estate market over the last 5 years, it is totally appropriate to
Absolutely,
do it.
absolutely.
Sharon, can you talk about the Care Realty hire
I
and
would love to.
status and which properties they're marketing, the status of where they are? I did full disclosure, send an email to Rick regarding the Falling Down property because I had heard that there were a few bids in. So I'm not sure where that is, but if you could give us an update, which properties and where they are. Thank you.
Sure. So 744 Bowling, the one that is being overseen by the bankruptcy court. We received 3 offers today from Dean. He wants to meet with us to discuss the offers. You know, choose one going forward. And the bankruptcy court's in a hurry also to get this done. So watch for that. That'll be coming. We also have the property up on Hoosick and South Lake, the old Korean
Yeah.
Baptist Church.
Yeah.
That,
You should let him know his sign fell down.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll tell him.
Yep.
He's had a little bit of interest in that, but really to sell that, you need more of the properties around it, which is an option.
They mentioned parking. Where's the parking there? I know there's like a little sliver in between the funeral home Doran and that, but they think there's parking. What are they talking about?
There's no parking.
And there's no off street, forget it.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct, across the
That
street,
they had.
across Hoosick.
gotcha.
And who, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
So that one's also for sale. And the,
any bites on that or no?
people have looked at it. We haven't had any offers yet.
How's the inside of that, the foundation though? Pretty good?
One building is good. One, there's a lot of roof damage.
Okay.
We had to create a path just so that it gets to the door. Get rid of the poison ivy and everything.
I will say, having team marketing, that property is at least a 180, not a 360 turnaround, at least with us. If it was net, you know, a couple of years ago and last year, but he's on the property manager, whoever, to at least keep it semi-respectable.
But yeah, that was our code for.
Yep.
And then the other property is the old Leonard Hospital
Mhm.
is off the list.
Yeah.
He's had some calls, but we haven't got any offers on that yet.
Okay.
So that's what we have listed currently.
Mhm.
And it's a pleasure to work with Dean's.
Yeah, they're a good company.
Yeah.
Yep, Councilmember Soriento.
I'm not sure, I think this is more of a question for Andy. So I'm showing a $14,000 increase in the health insurance. Does that include the retiree? No, so what's,
Yeah, one, we're gonna talk about health
Yeah.
insurance shortly.
okay,
Two, more than likely, someone has new and changing coverage.
okay, got it. And does
From
that,
person A to person B.
and does that also include, so does this figure include the employee contribution? So it excludes that, correct? Sure.
Councilmember Figueroa.
Just taking a behind.
Okay.
the church property, was that put back on us? Because I remember that we decided to take it off the list because of parking and everything. And, someone that would possibly buy it. I think it was discussed that had to like redo the whole thing. So it's back alive in.
Live on the market, not selling through proposal, but on the market with your realty.
Okay.
Thank you, council member. I had forgotten that was.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yep, council member Min.
Sharon, just because we do have a lot of people watch the budget hearing, what's the listing price for the Korean Baptist Church for our dedicated audience that's interested in purchasing it? And Leonard Hospital?
I believe the Korean Baptist Church is 189. Hospital is
I think it's online.
899, maybe,
I was gonna say 800, but
something like that.
It's a. Listen, when they go viral, those are incredible bargains.
Exactly.
And for everyone in real estate out there, do not miss this opportunity to buy these trucks. Because these are really, that's really fair prices.
Yeah,
For sure.
Okay.
190,000,
the same, but right now, somewhere
under $1 million.
under $1 million, yeah. And it's cleared.
Yeah.
We all know
Show
that.
ready.
So, yeah,
Yeah. Can I mention one more thing?
absolutely.
So one of the services that we offer in my office, myself and Albert are both notaries. And that is, I don't know if you've tried to get a notary lately, but some of the banks no longer offer the service. So we do a lot of notary work. Just wanted to share that.
Interesting.
We do it for Kevin, for, animal control. We do some stuff, there's a lot of what do they call it, guys, that go in the communication guys, so. Marshals, the city marshals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we do, so, and the public, people come here to get things notarized, so.
Thankfully, my bank continues, they're good. No, Secu doesn't, but do you guys charge?
We don't charge.
Okay.
I don't think you can charge.
You can charge.
But personally, yeah, people can charge, I think it's like $10 or, yeah, it's a few bucks and
We don't
Yeah.
charge.
Yep, I have friends, but a lot of folks don't charge.
Yeah.
But you definitely can charge. I know that, because I've offered. Don't take.
That would-
For the sake of-
that would actually be something that'd be great to, have a press release on. And also because the love number of notaries are really limited, especially now that the county, besides the county clerk, the county legal department had notaries, and now they're on Main Street Bush. And so knowing that the city, that would be something that'd be really nice to have a press release put out so that people know that that service is here. And then also something on the website, city website, because it is actually something that is just one of those barriers. It's like it's a hurdle for everyone, even people starting a business or doing all kinds of stuff. So I'm really glad to hear that.
Danae over in planning also has her.
Gotcha. So Sharon going into 2024, what do you foresee?
Well, we're gonna have some changes with exemptions. The county is supposed to pass something this month in October for the low income senior. They're proposing raising the base limit to $40,000 without a sliding scale, removing the medical expenses. Once the county passes it, then I'll be presenting it to the council.
Can you take a step back? What is it now? That's the three, right? The senior citizen is so different.
it's the RP 467, senior citizen, low income senior exemption,
No, it's different.
not the enhanced.
Right, okay. Right.
And so the rate hasn't been, the percentage hasn't changed since 2009. So the state last year raised it to 58.9, the top level. More so for downstate was our opinion upstate. So because it's very hard to estimate what the amount will be to your roll, to your tax base, the county decided to do it in increments. So this year they're proposing $40,000 with no sliding scale. So if the senior makes $40,000 or less, they would get 50%.
Mhm.
Whereas right now it's 37.4 and there's a sliding scale down to 29,000. And at 29,000 and below, you get 50%.
Interesting, like the Sharon, this is great, you opened up a gateway here, do you coordinate with, the garbage fee? Is there coordination with the assessor's office? Because, there was a paragraph regarding the senior citizen tax exemption and the impact it's having on the garbage fee. But do you coordinate who gets the senior citizen tax exemption and who gets exempted from the garbage fee? Is there that you might be able to answer?
They take our role.
Gotcha. So gotcha. I was just curious how that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so you figure out all the tax exemptions, enhanced, et cetera, you hand over to finance. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
So the county hasn't passed it yet, but when they do, then it'll get presented to the city council, the school board. And you can, anybody can pass it or not. You know what I mean? So if you don't pass it, if you don't all stay on the same page, then every entity will have their own percentage.
Yeah, that's better. So that obviously wouldn't be reflected in the 2024 budget yet,
Correct.
but if we do it at the end of the year, if it comes, obviously, depending.
It would have to be done before March 1st of 2024 for the 2024 assessment roll.
And Sharon, I did not, get a chance to look at the exemptions in the back. Was there any major change? If you look on page 263, it has, the number of exemptions, and I can compare it with your read. Has it changed dramatically from last year?
No, not gonna see a big change.
Yeah, that's fine.
The pilot number probably went up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, but I can get Steve, that's so kind. Steve, that is so nice. Thank you. Steve, that was really nice, thank you. That's so kind, thank you. That's right. Chipper, the shipper, Chipper read, CHIDAL. Okay. Yep, from the last year. I got 282. Well, that's, yep.
Close enough.
Yeah, not a big change. Anything else, Sharon?
I don't have anything else.
Thanks again. Any further comments, questions for Sharon? Councilmember Gully.
On the property auction, Sharon, are you continuing to see, because I don't we had, are we continuing to see that escalation of bids?
Yeah.
And we're finally starting to get some notice that these properties aren't such cheap buys. and we're getting some good people who are fitting in on them. And do you think that we're minimizing, is that list shrinking down as we go forward here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're getting down, well, we don't have any of our properties.
We have some vacant land.
Yeah.
In one house. And then we should be foreclosing on the next round in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But again, that list also has decreased
Yeah,
immensely.
well, that's a good thing. You got people paying that.
Right. That's what we want.
Great job, Sharon.
Okay. We had talked about to end on that, the real property, subcommittee. Are there any recommendations or anything that you feel, should be looked at going into 2024? Like, Councilmember Gully said, it seems to, be working, but, we've had a couple instances where, I think a lot of times when you look at it on paper, and then people come in and they give you, drawings and things like that. So saying that, is there anything maybe you want to look at in 2024 with the real property subcommittee or, anything that you recommend?
If the market continues like it does, like it has been, might not be a bad idea to list a few more of them with the realtor. They get a lot more exposure. We tend to probably get a better price.
Especially, some of the bigger ones that don't need, the $200,000-300,000 of investment. Yeah. Okay,
Sure.
Councilmember Gully.
As part of that committee, a while back, Bob Doherty and I sat down, we had a great conversation about how do we get closer to knowing the truth of these applications? There's so many things they put down, and we don't know them to be fact or fiction.
Right.
Because we're not in everything. He made a great suggestion that when we have a couple of good bidders on a property, we should set up a way, either by Zoom or something, some technology, to interview these people, find out, are they really gonna live in there? Are they really gonna do things? Because you can tell when you're talking to them, and when they respond, you can also tell what kind of person they are. And we can better solidify their financial strength to complete the project, so we don't have houses that we sell that 6 months or a year later, nothing happens. I think we need to smooth that over. And I think that we have to have maybe even a little stronger reverter on the one that do try to. But I would make that suggestion that when we have a couple of really good bids, that we take that time, because we don't have to rush to sell property. We take the time to interview the bidders that we think are serious about the project, so we find out more about them and what they're really gonna do with this project. Because I've seen too many of them just not going. I think that's, we're giving them a heck of a building for a heck of a price. We should get a return on our investment. We're not looking for money, we are looking for quality. I think it's time that we start to enforce that by interviewing these people, find out what we got. That's what I have to say.
And on your note regarding the reverter, I would like to see more proactiveness on that front. And, I know you're just one piece of the pie on that. So if you have ideas, we're open. Councilmember Conley Wilson.
On that note, how frequently do we end up using the reverter on any of these properties? See progress happening.
I don't think I've ever seen, maybe once, or I don't remember one ever.
And how long have you been with the city? Karen?
12 and a half years.
And just kind of building off of what Councilmember Gully was talking about, I know when I submitted my application in 2018 for a vacant property, I had 2 people submit letter of recommendation. They were some of my college professors to verify, yes, county kindergarten and is going, see this. So that might be an option that we have, but maybe not a requirement, but that could also help confirm different things. With the application.
Definitely.
Sure.
Councilmember Gully.
I'd like to at least help council member Keani Wilson understand the reverter. Up until 6 years ago, we had a reverter that wasn't legally able to bring person to court properly. The wording, the verbiage, and the direction did not lead us to any type of success, so it would be a waste of our money to pay an attorney to go there just to lose the case. So it was redone by Kevin Blaschino, one of them made an attorney, and Mark McGrath, who was on the council at the time, along with words, communication with some of the council members to strengthen it up. And I think that they did a really good job, but I do think that we put a few more teeth to it to really kind of solidify what we, there's still people out there buying our properties and selling them later. And I think that needs to be looked at, and we need to be stronger about it. But the reason why you've never seen a case, they can legally never bring them to court.
And you're right, there were teeth put into it after the Attorney General did that in-depth investigation, Cemetery Road, and, but it can always improve for sure, because it's not being utilized. Your friend, Councilmember Dell. Hey Sharon, one thing, I was looking at, page 264, the, solar or wind energy system, it's probably not under you, but it is an exemption. And I did notice that last year we had total equalized value of exemptions at 1774, 342. And this year we have 3,428.571, which is a huge jump, but the amount of money only went up slightly. What does that mean? And how do I?
So there's only one solar exemption, and that's down on Landfill Road, I believe it's called.
Yeah, the colleague director.
Right. So without my computer in front of me, I don't. It went to full value maybe this year.
Yeah, it just kind of jumped at me because, the dollar, or, the exemption didn't really go up, the system exemption, but it jumped almost double. I have no clue what that means.
I have to look at it, but the state provides there's been a lot of controversy around how they should be valued. But we valued it as the state indicated it be done, so. But that's the only one with an exemption so far.
Okay. Andy, do you know anything about this? Mayor, do you know anything about this?
I did have to sit down and share in the file.
Okay. I don't understand. Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Sharon? Councilmember Conley Wilson?
I'm kind of curious about, some of the nonprofits. I know, I'm just curious with when they have exemptions, are they always using their buildings for tax exempt purposes?
They should be. If they're not, we can slash, all slashes, we can slash out that any part that's taxable and send them a tax bill for that portion. And then the other part would be non-taxable.
Yeah, I just asked, because I know of a nonprofit that rents out some of their floors for commercial space.
Yeah, if you ask me which ones, I could tell you if we had it or not. We're getting ready right now to send out the renewals. Every year they have to renew their exemption. They'll go out on Monday. And everybody has to reapply again, and there's a spot right in there that says, is there any change in use? It's what is, yeah. We should know that.
Sharon, lastly, sorry, just some things are popping up. Remember, there was a little bit of communication with seniors having like the new process they had to apply for their exemption, maybe it was STAR or something, and during the COVID, we waived that. Yeah, can you talk about that, please? And is it all straightened out now? because I know a couple of people were really confused, like last year, yeah.
So yeah, during COVID, the state waived that you didn't have to reapply, but that is over. Everybody has to reapply. We send out all of the renewals every year. We call them if they don't send them in. Sometimes we even pick them up. You know, we do everything we can for our seniors. And
Just remember the handful of people, it slipped through and they didn't apply and yes, they were extremely upset. So,
Right.
anything we can do to help get that word out. But when do you send those out, Sharon?
we'll be sending them out sometime this month.
This month, okay.
And they're due back by March first, but we asked them, please. It's, you know, now they go back to the 2022 income. It's not 2023.
Okay,
So they have that income tax now. They should send it in as soon as they get their form.
right.
And some people don't.
Some people don't think they have to. They think, well, COVID messed it up by not having them apply, but then now they just think it's automatic. Because there is the automatic one that you don't.
The enhanced, you don't have to
Exactly.
reapply.
It gets very confusing and,
Exactly.
um,
And throw 91 years, you know, of age on that.
Yeah. oh yeah, broke, 45. Uh-huh. Okay. Gabrielle did. Okay,
The postcards also got people confused.
Yeah.
And that's gonna happen again this year, not because we want to, but because that's what the legislation says. You have to have 2 notices. First one is on the back of the tax bill in January. The second one is gonna be a postcard 30 days prior to March 1st.
but we can certainly do whatever we want to notify them. I mean, those are the, minimums of what you have to do, but we can add whatever, so whatever you think, I mean, it's really important, and I did like this last one. The lead replacement program was put into, what was it, the water bill. It was flashy, it caught my attention, not your regular black and white, everyday type letter. So this was color, it was flashy, and I think we should do that, because you're talking how many? 300-400?
Yeah, they are blue. We do make them blue. So when they call, we know what exemption they're on. We can remember.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Good, Sharon. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Sharon. We really appreciate you,
Well,
hanging around. And it's not 10 o'clock at night for a change. Yeah, you could eat dinner. Bring it back. All right. Moving along now. Now for the biggie, the power code. Do you want to try the TV one last time? All right, I lost count. Yeah, maybe it had a little bug. Okay. Just for folks out there, we have a TV, a couple TVs, and we love to have the PowerPoint on this TV. But Vizio is not working with us. Everybody's paid bill, don't we?
And even the public will, they will still be able to see it.
I know. Yeah. This, yes. Sue, you need to talk about this. Thank you. We got. Yeah. She can. I'll stay on. Oh, I see. The line, I'm sorry. What is it? I can feel it once. Okay, Andy. Did you say you had, oh.
I put 6 copies, well, everybody has a copy of
Yeah.
the chair, and then I did put 6 copies. in The back there.
Okay, John and Greg, Not sure if we grabbed one in case the TV comes off. There's a power plant. Okay, you're gonna stand there all night? No. Okay. Did you try taking? Did you try taking?
Bathroom time, but I don't,
It's still on.
I think it's really the wire and really.
Gotcha. Okay,
We have one.
we better. All right, Andy, thank you very much. Your PowerPoints continue to improve.
Thank you. This is very similar to last year, so.
Okay,
So the overview, we're gonna go through citywide, all 4 operating funds, the permanent salaries, the pension, the health insurance, then start on some commentary on debt service, then an overview of the general fund spending and revenue sources. As I annually request, I would like to defer like revenues, expenditures, and the garbage fund, water fund, and sewer funds be discussed at their respective budget hearings. DPU, I believe, is Tuesday, and then garbage is sometime, I think it's November 13th. And then to finish, a review of the tax cap calculation, which is pretty different this year, with respect to some items in it, and then the proposed tax rate calculation. Getting right into it, permanent salaries, which would be code 101 in every department. There's a table there that shows the change in each of the funds. Yeah. So the table shows the change from the 2023 original budget to the 2024 proposed budget. Citywide, a $1.5 billion increase in permanent salaries. The reason for that, first and foremost, 3 bargaining units have contractual increases in 2024. CSDA has a 3% raise. UFA, as we're all are aware from the contract that was approved last Thursday, there's a 4% raise in 2023 and a 4% raise in 2024. So when you compare the 2023 original budget to the 2024 budget, that those salaries will increase the total aggregate of that, because that contract was obviously approved after the budget was done. And UFCA, which is the battalion chiefs, the assistant fire chief and the deputy fire chief have a need to clause for wages in their contract. So what they essentially get, they do get the same raises that the UFA.
and Andy, while we're on that, one of the things I had asked you the other day, the top step for the sergeant, that's not increasing. And, you know, now that Chief DeWolf mentioned the other day, obviously a real disparity. You're talking 10 grand. I think he said the average was 85, we're at 75. Why was that not included?
Sergeants are part of PVA. PVA's contract expires December 31st, 2023. Contract negotiations with the PVA will be commencing before the end of the month.
But the other steps were in, that's.
So I'm gonna, for the public safety budget hearing on the 25th, I will have the salary schedule with the month, so you can see that they're not changing as of right now between 2023 and 2024. That pending the contract to be successfully negotiated with the PBA.
But how can you put them in?
The steps are part of the contract language right now. So
But
that
it's not the sergeant.
sergeants don't have steps. Police officers have steps, sergeants do not. So bargaining units with contracts that are expiring on December 31st would be PBA, COPE, which is police captains, and OPSIT, as we previously discussed. So the positions that have step increases would be everyone in CSDA, PBA, police officer titles only, UFA, firefighter titles only. Any other title in UFA or PBA are just
Okay, so give me the equivalent would be for the USA, assistant captain maybe, no,
Captain.
captain. All right.
On the. No, just on the step increases, I don't, this is the 11th budget I've been a part of at the city. I do not remember a year where there have been this many step increases across the entire city. Almost every department felt like they had a step. Increase. We have,
did 1 year where there were a lot, but
feels like there's more this year. We did, you will see a lot of departments' salary savings. One of the pieces of that salary savings is we go through each individual employee and calculate to the half month what their salary was before the step increase, what their salary will be after the step increase, so we annualize it to, and then pick up salary savings from there. So the budget does reflect salary savings line, the difference in those steps.
question. And we've talked about this before, this is more universal. When I was at Canal, we would not put someone in a position at the top step. We were able to put them at more of an entry level, not the top. Are we continuing to put, when someone does start for the city at that top step? Or are we putting them in at an entry level? And then 6 months, and then, 12 months. I mean, they would get them, but it would be gradual. What's the city do?
So for CSDA, we can start them at either step 0 or step 1. For a new hire PBA member, they would start at step 0 with the exception of that being a lateral transfer, at which point their prior experience would come with them for their applicable step. And I do not know the answer to UFA because I don't, new hires would start at the starting step. I don't know about laterals for UFA because I don't recall ever hearing about a lateral in the fire department.
No, you're right. It's interesting. It's interesting. Council members oriented.
There's also an academy rate, correct? Isn't there with the PBA?
Kind of works out to be that way where this, if I remember correctly, the starting pay is like 6 months, which kind of overlaps to their time in the academy.
And then it increases with finish the academy.
Yeah.
But it's set by months, not necessarily academy.
Oh, okay.
But I think it almost falls like in line with, it's pretty close to the length of the academy and the length of the step. The next slide is the history of bond anticipation notes interest rates. Which,
Oh,
so this is updated from last year's budget presentation.
Andy, where's the tax count?
That's at the end,
Oh, you have it on the first page.
on the overview.
Okay, very good.
So this is the issuance history of bond anticipation notes that we have. When we sold them, the rates we've received. So the last time you've seen this line graph was September 2022 at 3.43%. We've had 2 issuances this year. In January, we issued a bond anticipation of 4% with a premium that brought it down to 3.18%. And in July, 4.5% with after premium 3.9%. What is different on here this year that I point out, because serial bonds have increased from 2023 to 2024, is there are 3 green dots on this graph. See, one in 2020 at 2.4%, which was higher than the bond anticipation note interest rate. One in January of 2022, 2.24%. This is when we have gone to long-term debt. In July of 2023, we issued a 13-year serial bond from 3.1%, which somehow is 80 basis points less than a 1-year note. This is the inverted curve for those who follow interest rate information on the news. We decided to go to long-term debt because it was advantageous. We were going to pay less interest than a 1-year note, but also to lock in a 3.1% rate for 13 years because we don't know where these rates are going to go. Going to the next slide.
So Andy, equivalent to if
Yeah, so a serial bond is like a mortgage. On anticipation, though, there's a lot of flexibility that comes with it. With, you have minimum paybacks, things of that nature. You don't lock in your rates, you go back, you open yourself, I mean, this has been extreme. You open yourself up from jumping from 0.52% to 3.18%. That's the risk we ran. No one, because with this last, no one saw this.
I'm
Like
looking at
coming.
last year, there's
So I talked a lot with fiscal advisors in May and June about this strategy of going to long-term debt. What we did with the July issuance was we paid down a significant portion of the note itself. And what put everything on long-term debt that was not going to be grant reimbursed in the next 3 to 5 years, because you can put a band on your fund. We maximize the amount we can put out the long term and significantly lower that issue. The July issuance is 100% reimbursed. It's street paving and some other grant funds.
do you plan to go out before the end of the year? Is that
Unless if there is an emergency, like the next issuance will be in January, late January. The next slide is that line graph in the table form with summary of these two. That will illustrate. I would highly recommend looking at the band effective interest rate as opposed to the interest rate itself, because that middle column is what we actually pay. You can see the spike, and then again the comparison of the serial bond rates, which, as I mentioned before, is serial bonds are just like a mortgage.
And Andy, last year, you could not include that band effective interest.
It was
Um,
I didn't have the serial bonds because
Oh,
we hadn't
I
gone.
got it.
We hadn't gone to serial bond several years. For a variety of. There's a bit of strategy behind it. I worked with fiscal advisors on it, to time it at the most prudent time to do it. The last time we had gone was in January of 2022. It's also very expensive to issue serial bonds. Because of not only the cost, there's an additional cost for fiscal advisors and city's bond council, but also you have to pay to get a rating, and those run upwards of over $20,000. So we continue to monitor interest rates. The 2024 budget does continue the practice of leaving the option available for both the January and July issuance to do short-term financing or long-term financing or a combination of both. So there is flexibility for the debt in next year's budget.
And you know what, Andy, does that correlate, because I did notice when looking at your summary of city debt on page 6, the increase of the band.
This increase in the serial bonds is because of this. We can talk about that now if you'd like. or wait.
No, go. Thank you.
So the total serial bond due across all funds next year is $3.5 million. Principal and interest on the bond anticipation notes is $2.9 million. Installment purchase debt is $883,000. Bond anticipation notes does not include principal pay down of grant reimbursements. That's accounted for separate. This is simply budgetary. We are budgeting $1.6 million at a minimum pay down principal of the notes next year.
Okay, so when you say the grant,
So the street paving is 100% reimbursable. City would pay down the principal balance of all reimbursements received as of time of issuance next year. That's not included in the $1.6 million.
anything else or?
South Troy Road, I think, has some out, so we would pay down the 80, we got reimbursed, we had expenses and reimbursements there. There's some other grants outstanding that we're working on getting reimbursed right now to pay those down.
I think you you did and want some shower, remember the one I have? Maybe. up
Later in the budget
there,
process.
I know, not now, but that was really, really good with all of our grants and. You know, bonding and.
It's much smaller now. It's much, we could, especially the July issuance, it's condensed down to about 5 months, I would say. The January issuance still has a lot there because we haven't gone to serial bond. That inverted curve really started after the January issuance of this year. You run the risk of, because you bid it, that the market's so tumultuous that we decided to keep everything on short term. And then July, it was pretty definitively known that we would have a lower rate. It was just a matter of what. It was not expected to have an 80 basis point difference. It also was not expected that we would have a 3.9% bond anticipation. That was actually expected to be somewhere around 4.25%. And that was very good.
We're living the crazy time of yield curve is what's in it.
You are out of order.
Yeah, okay. A little levity, a little levity, a little levity.
Debt payments come from premiums received. So the revenues to offset $7.3 million in debt payments. 2023 premiums received. Any unused debt proceeds, which there are some for designated projects. And then the balance from the 4 respective operating funds based off of their actual costs.
Okay, so Andy, blue, yep. There's your serial bond. Yeah, I was looking at last year, so we'll go over that.
Pension costs. The 2024 budget includes prepaying pension on December 15th as opposed to February 1st, which gives about, say, we're annually between $50,000 and $70,000 in savings. ERS has increased employee retirement system cost to the city $281,000 next year at 14.44%. It's across all 4 funds. Police and fire has increased $880,000 or 11.4%. That means you're
Compared to last year, that's double.
wow, total 1.2 million or 12%. And that includes budgetary savings from no longer having pension payments. So if we don't prepay those pension loans this year, imagine that number would be even higher. There is no pension deferral in the 2024 budget.
That's awesome.
We're waiting. I have heard from New York State that the documents to get out of the program are being reviewed by the state, so hopefully we will have them in the next 30 to 45 days. The cause of the increase is exclusively due to increased contribution percentages. And I will warn everyone that this very well could be the start of increases of this nature. This is not, people do not think this is a one-off. We have been warned that this is, it's very well as the, could be the start of a lot of significant increases.
Andy, is that all tiers or specifically the later?
If we go to the next page,
Sorry.
there's 2 tables. The top table is the change in the 2023 rates to the 2024 rates. This is what was in last year's presentation, where ERS had double-digit increases with PFRS hovered between somewhere in the 4 to 5% increase, percent increase. 24 to 25, ERS is now jumping anywhere from 19% to 20%, and PFRS is between 14 and 15%. So I just want to point out, and this is just the reality of what their contribution rates are now. A tier 6 ERS employee, city will now, for every $1 of pensionable earnings, city will pay 11 cents for the pension. For a tier 6 police officer, every dollar will now be 24 cents to their state pension, and the fire almost 25 cents for a tier 6 employee on the dollar.
We're gonna go to Councilmember Soriento, and then I have a question. Councilman,
For the 2025, is that based off of the projection invoice? Okay,
So those rates get locked,
yeah,
which
the projected invoice.
the rates that are on the projected invoices never change. They're valued. They're valued as of, I think, April 1st, 2023 for the 2025. What will change is that they'll have obviously the actual earnings, but those contribution rates don't change. And I only know that because in 2020, there were significant contribution increase. The percentage increases significantly increased during calendar year 2020. I think it was on the 2022. It's on the 2022 bill, because we're going to talk about that and all of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of municipalities called the state and said, why is it happening now? And the response that we were all given was because the market gets evaluated on March 31st, which in 2020 was right when it bottomed out. And the response was, well, why can it be reevaluated? And we were all told, and I'm not trying to bash the state comptroller's office.
you can.
The reality of it is that it would have required state legislation to change when the contribution rates evaluated for a bill that's due almost 24 months.
And Matt, are you okay, Councilman?
I think so, yeah. Yes.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I know that the state's looking at, because they're having similar struggles, obstacles, recruiting people. And it did really begin when these new tiers went into effect. That was the trickle. Now we're seeing, younger people, these tier 5, tier 6, I'm in tier 4, but 5 and 6 and 7, I think there's tier 7. And then they're talking. Has there been any discussion to look at these tiers while they're talking about new civil service? I know the state is potentially looking at different, civil service amendments to try to get better recruitment. Has there been any discussion about the tiers?
Not that I've heard.
Not that it's fire.
Yeah.
I will note that we will come back to a conversation about the change. At the bottom table, the change, not the percent change column, the change column of where it's 2.9, 1.8, 5.1. Those increases then play into the tax cap calculations. So because of these increases that we're seeing, it impacts the tax cap calculation.
So Charles is out.
And we're going to touch on that at the end of the presentation. Health insurance. Citywide, an increase in 2024 of $852,000. Premium and premium equivalent cost increases and changes of coverage within departments. The city self-insured plan increased 5.56%.
You did a really good pension cost payback of prior years. But we're not obviously doing that anymore, so this is. Yep.
So the city self-insured plan increase of 5.56% was actually anticipated to be double digits. And that's what a lot of local governments, from my understanding, are seeing on both self-insured plans and community rated plans.
Yep.
The third quarter report will, everything goes according to plan, be out by the end of the month. What you will see is that health insurance this year has settled down. Where it's not running as nearly as high as it was in the first 6 months, which has been nice to see for a variety of reasons. And played a factor into this calculation. The Medicare Advantage plan, which is community rated,
I apologize, is that based on claims or no?
it's exclusively based on claim payments. That is the starting point for the calculation. Medicare Advantage plan through Humana, which is a community rated plan, that premium did increase 6.53%.
I apologize, I was writing down. Could you state the Humana again?
6.53%.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Soriano.
So for the Medicare Advantage plan, that's based solely on single coverage, correct?
Yes,
So what is that monthly rate?
I can get it.
Okay. And has there been was there an increase last year on the Medicare Advantage also?
1.5-ish.
Okay. So did they explain like why?
We're looking into that now.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It is better than Empire.
$0.80 last year.
Okay, that's a, yeah. Yep, no problem. And Andy, regarding employees, I mean, full disclosure, my mom had a Humana, super pleased, not gonna lie. The retirees seem to be pleased from what I hear, not just from my mom, but others. Regarding the non-retirees, has there been any discussion, changing any plans, anything like that in the foreseeable future? All is status quo, all is good. Thank you. Same with retirees.
Correct.
Okay.
The 2024 general fund expenditures by type. Which in the description this year, there's the number that it correlates to in each department. So wages would be 100, benefits 800. As you'll see, I just want to know two things as part of this. 76.26% of the general fund budget is for employee wages and benefits. 83.31% of the general fund budget is wages, benefits, and debt service. So 83, there's much more than this, there's more than this percentage, but those three categories, all fixed costs, 83% of the budget.
Could you repeat that, Andy?
76.26% of the budget is employee wages and benefits. 83.31% of the budget is wages, benefits, and debt.
Can you add that in the future to this slide? Please, not that I'm gonna be chair next year, but I think it'd be helpful to whoever's.
By department, similar to type has the department code to the right-hand side. I will note that public safety is not just police and fire, it's any department that starts with the number 3. So that would also include code, traffic, parking, examining boards, and the 911 count.
You know what, Andy? That's a really important statement. Sorry, my doctor. Because when people think public safety, they think only police and fire. Thank you.
The revenues 34.6% comes from property taxes. Almost 44% from local revenues. 3.66% from interfund revenues, 16% from state aid. 0.03% federal aid. There is no ARPA appropriation in the 2024 budget.
So
Unless I think ARPA was ever intended to be used to, for lack of better words, plug your annual budget.
we get,
So it's not there. And 1.8% from intra-fund transfers, which is primarily the water surplus transfer. Calculating the 2024 property tax rate, total appropriations of $82,062,198. Non-budget revenues, which is everything but the tax levy, 53.6 million, leaving revenue required for property tax, just under 28.4 million. Add in the net tax overlay, which is a consideration of the people who don't pay taxes. Total required tax levy of $28.8 million, divided by the taxable properties tax rate of $15.93 for every $1,000 of assessed value, an increase of 3.21%. You're under the tax cap by $48,000.
Andy, I did notice, let's see, our local revenues went up about 4 mil. And like, what was that?
Sales tax,
Sales tax.
over, I would say about 50% of that sales tax.
Really? Cause I saw that the local revenue, I saw the ARPA, like you said. The appropriations went up about 3 mil. You attribute that mostly.
I would attribute that almost exclusively to pension, health insurance, and sales. Tax cap. I think unfortunately the biggest misnomer that has been put out there for years is that tax cap is 2%.
The CPR.
It's the lesser of 2% of the CPI. Pilots play a factor into it. Carry over from the prior year play a factor into it, and then retirement exclusions, which I do want to talk about, and that'll be in the next slide. This is the calculation for the tax cap. Did verify it with the state before it was released last Friday. And the form has been filed with the state for their annual review, along with the constitutional tax limit, which is what I would call the real tax cap. So as I mentioned, we're $48,000 under the cap. My annual reminder that tax cap is not on the tax rate, it is on the tax levy. The tax levy for the purposes of the tax cap is the city tax levy, bid tax levy, because it is their levy is determined based off of the city tax rate and city exemption. That's why the proposed tax levy on this sheet of $29 million, prior page it was 28, city levy itself is 28.8 million, about $200,000 for the bid levy and exemption. And last slide, just to touch on these the tax cap exclusions.
All right, so Andy, is the library tax that was passed factored into 2024 or no?
No, the library is excluded entirely from the tax cap calculation.
Thank you. I knew that, but
Only the bid
The bid.
is because the bid levy is determined by taking their assessments, their total assessments, and the rate is 5% of the city tax rate. Take the city tax rate, multiply it by 5%, and run it back to their assessments. That's how you determine what money.
Andy, where can we find the bid levy in here?
It's not in there. I can send it. I can get it once I'm done with the presentation, because I have that sheet.
Does it go up when taxes go up in the city?
Yes.
How much, like, how does that slide go?
Assuming that their assessment stayed equal year to year. Their rate would go up, their rate would change in accordance with city rate. But their assessments never stay the same because properties in the bid, so properties citywide and properties that are in the bid district. You have a pilot, you are not exempt from library tax, and you are not exempt from bid tax when applicable.
Like you're exempt, oh.
You're
okay.
exempt from city tax, county tax, and
Correct.
school tax. They still have to pay library tax and when applicable, pay bid tax.
Interesting. You know,
No, the trip pilot excluded library.
Has to be,
Completely.
Yeah.
Not just
so any pilot from the city IDA pays library when applicable bid tax. Unless if it's clearly stated, no library, no bid.
okay, I'm never heard that here. Okay.
So the property tax cap exclusions that you see this year, $387,000, are applicable to each of the PRS and PFRS. It's a one-time exclusion that depends on the timing of when the annual invoice is paid, which now that the MAC no longer exists, the operational components that we had with it, we'll get state aid much quicker, which now allows us to prepay the bill, pension bill. So with this exclusion, we had to commit to paying the bill in December. And the other, it also depends on the change of pension contributions. Exclusions are one time, as I mentioned, they do not carry over from one budget to the next. Other components of the tax cap do, this does not. It's only available, in this case, in the 2024 budget. And the exclusions occur when the contribution rates for PFRS and ERS are greater than 2. First 2.00 change that occurs. It's deemed the responsibility of the local government by the state, which means you have to get it under your tax cap or do it.
So Andy, by paying off the pension, not having that payment, it did add it into the calculation for the tax.
That's separate.
That's
That's separate.
so what is the,
This is, remember I said when we looked at the pension slide, I said that change column is note that all the fees are just about over 2. That triggered the exclusion. So everybody in the state has this exclusion available to them. We used it. Which is why the tax cap is why we have a 3.
0.6?
We have a 3.21% tax change. The increase in the tax rate is 3.21%. You look at the levy change, it's over 3%. We're under the cap. This is why, because these exclusions are made available. It's the first time since 2013 to illustrate how significant these pension increases are. This is the first time since 2013 that the city has had available to them an exclusion for both ERS and PFRS. There was an exclusion available in the fiscal year 2022 budget for PFRS. This is the first time statewide that this exclusion is available for both systems since fiscal year 2013.
Right, so last year, the tax levy limit was 28 and change, this year it's 29. And obviously the retirement exclusion. Andy, we chose 25 things new every year. And Andy, do you think that the comptroller included those exclusions due to the increase in pension, et cetera?
Yes, it's a statutory requirement under the tax cap law. In regards to what the current bid levy is. Assuming nothing changes in the budget, $176,054. And for the cost of a Humana plan, which depending on your bargaining unit, there's different co-pay rules of the different plans. I would say it averages out to be $6,400 a year. That's a single, that's, and there's only single plans for Medicare Advantage.
Right.
Yeah, when I talked about, the cereal fund, after you take a drink. Is that tea or? or-
Go to page 6, the summary of debt. Total general fund debt is $60.4 million. Anything, as I mentioned, the increase in serial bonds is from the July issues. The garbage fund is under $1.6 million. And we issued serial bonds within the garbage fund as well. Water fund. There was $22.368 million in debt. Material increase to some degree. There was bond anticipation notes with EFC, which relate back to the first phase of the water transmission main project. And then the sewer fund, there was an increase in both bond anticipation notes and serial bonds of EFC. With respect to serial bonds, we closed on CSO project has different tranches of issuance that relate. We closed the long term on one of them. What we did was we paid off $3 million of debt and issued a serial bond for about $2 million, if I recall correctly. That is at 0% interest. And then the bond anticipation note increase relates exclusively to the CSO project. Total city debt as of October 10th was 97.35.
And last year, Andy, it was 92.4. And which you equate that, I mean, the vans went up 20, but that.
The increase is driven by CSO project, I would say, which is, I think the bands carry 30 basis point interest rate. Then when you go to long term, it's interest.
Yeah, and the band, for the waterfront went up 4 mil.
And that's the transmission main project.
Yeah, I'd like to see that breakdown at some point too. Please. And then the garbage fund, it looks like that almost doubled from 446 to 937. The cereal fund,
Yeah, we went to long term on,
and then the band went down. Yep. Okay. Anything else striking on that page? I'm just shocked that the sales tax went up about 4 mil. Still,
there were other, there's other revenues that are in that grouping, but the biggest increase comes from sales tax, which. So the sales tax increase was $1,750,000. What, looked at it three different ways and the budgeted $20,250,000, and that was the average of the lower of the two, the average, three calculations. That's the average of the lower two calculations. Sales tax continues to grow. We're through the second quarter of this year, we are at over $11 million in sales tax.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
In the sales tax report, do we get to see where that growth is? I mean, where it's coming from, or is it just one big one?
One big bundle.
We don't know what's driving that increase.
Hmm.
Do you have any guess on what might be driving the increase?
The increase in fuel costs. And then we've really seen an increase in sales tax when the law changed in the state 2 or 3 years ago, where online sales tax used to be on point of order, no, it used to be on point of shipment. It has changed to point of order, which conceivably would significantly drive up sales tax.
Online sales.
So prior to 2 or 3 years ago, if you order something from Amazon and it's shipped from not Rensselaer County received the sales tax.
Right.
When the law changed, Rensselaer County received the sales tax.
I don't know, I don't love you because that bill, but it certainly helps us. But, I mean, poor Mel, and, you know.
So that 1.75 million of the $4 million increase in sales tax. There are other increases throughout that. This is where interest earnings come into play, which that had a 6-figure increase as well. And I spent a lot of time going through these to really line them out. So
Yeah.
they made sense.
Andy, can we, while we're at least talking about it, if you don't mind, jump to page E. Please, yeah. Yeah, not this sales tax.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Mann. Thank you.
Mr. President. When we get, does the state keep more specific information regarding sales tax? Even from like. Because what I'm wondering is, if we're gonna have our first, dispensary in Troy's 4% sales tax. You know, that will come in a separate line item, they're told. And I don't know how it's workers connected here, Rensselaer, I mean. They're not that much farther ahead of us at the time. And the other piece I was thinking about in terms of sales tax revenue is hotel bed tax being applied to short-term rentals, Airbnbs. And so we'll you know that for 2025, you know, we'll have a new sales tax revenue dispensary. And then, you know, if we were to pass legislation taxing short-term rentals.
It could, reporting on your ability to get data on sales tax is from a 100,000 foot view is being generous. You can only get by taxing jurisdiction by county or by or locally concerned city has their own sales tax, so that's on the report. There's no, fuel on, they don't delineate that way. You also don't report sales tax that way. You just put your gross sales on it and report in. So
Yeah.
and I think that's where it comes from, is that it's not reported to the state. State reporting is as a lump sum, not by industry.
Right, yeah, because they're not keeping track of what type of business it is. That makes such interesting information to sort of see where you're getting return on investment. You know, what types of businesses are, and also, you know, what businesses are hurting and where to target the more funds.
any of our audience out there looking for a fun research project, I feel like we could get a doctorate in this.
Okay, Andy, sales tax, page 8, I did notice, that, normally you're pretty conservative. And, but you are, proposing 2.5, or, 2.2 more. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yes. It's still conservative.
Oh, yeah, I get it. It's just, for you. Yes. Because I know you're very concerned. Also, I did notice, what else, the sales tax pilot with the county. Hold on, bear with me, no, not that one, sorry. I highlighted, I know that this fluctuates, the comptroller's fee.
Depends on so comptroller's fees, court counsel fees, assessor fees.
Yeah.
Really fluctuate annually by the amount of foreclosed property sales that occur annually. And so there was consideration given to all three of those, that by the time we complete the foreclosure process, there will be no sales outside of the ones through the realtor. The sales won't start again until next year.
And I know we're gonna hit a bunch of the other fees in their appropriate departments. So like the ALS, the billing, things like that. But I did, if you don't mind, wanted to hit a couple of things. One was the franchise. Maybe at some point we could be brought up to speed. I think the council was copied. Maybe it was just me, I'm not sure. But I forwarded it to Rick. There's a firm reaching out to us pretty aggressively regarding the franchise fee.
I can guess who, yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can send that email.
Yeah. So,
I know it's something that Rick, they're working on, getting resolved.
we'll get an update on that.
And I will note that the revenue, I'm sure he's referencing in the payment he's looking for
Yeah.
is for a one-time revenue. It is not. There would be a new agreement. The revenue that would have been referenced in that email is one time. That's that probably failed to be mentioned by them.
Okay. Andy, I did want to, even though we'll talk about this in the general services, but I did want to address, because in finance last year, I did mention the marina, and we all know it's weather dependent. I felt that the proposed revenue for 2023 was kind of over ambitious. What do we have to date?
I can,
And there's a little bit.
I'll pull that and send it.
Okay, if you could give us what to date for the docking and the fuel. Because, next year, the proposal is 80 and it did come down for the docking charges, probably a little more conservative, but the fuel, I am curious. So if you could get us both of those numbers, that would be helpful.
I will.
Thank you. And I know we're gonna talk about all these. The last one, hold on, that I wanted to talk about tonight was the, I highlighted that the sale of the electrical power.
So this is from the solar arrays, which National Grid only allows us to change the account once a year where credits from the solar array. After it was earlier this year, I've been I've been working with National Grid on this and getting it switched. That's why we're gonna switch the account. Found out after year end, after this year started, it was too late to switch. And the credits that were on, the credit for all the solar arrays was previously pointed to the streetlight account. Which somehow was not mentioned when we bought the streetlights and opened a new account, that the credit would no longer go to the account. So we will now be switching it over next year to the new streetlight account, where the credit will then be applied against the bill.
You're gonna kill me, but can you give us a breakdown of, like, separately from the streetlight account? Can you give us a breakdown of that?
The expenses,
Okay. But obviously the revenue coming in, so where would this, because obviously in 2023, we had to have some revenue from it. Where did that go?
so
In accounting.
it's accounting world, it's,
Do I want to know?
it's essentially a prepaid expense in the accounting. And then will be recognized when we get zero bills for many months on the streetlight account because of this.
Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
do we know when that will be?
When I'm working with them now. Now that budget will pre-time next few weeks.
So 2020.
No, we're gonna get the accounts switched over for January 1st, 2020.
Okay, that's-
And we're not, that will get switched over.
Yes.
Need to finalize them, get the paperwork, finalize the paperwork. They are aware that we know about this credit account now. And I will say that there were people from Grid who have acknowledged that we gotta get this resolved.
Did we lose in the process?
Just been amassing, and not trying to make light of it, I mean, it was just amassing a credit. The bill, that account was not always online. That's how we found it, was it appeared online, and then my understanding, it may not have been online for very long.
I'm gonna let it go.
Okay, Andy.
Oh, the next.
Okay.
But I will say Bob Chevy has been, I mean, Bob's been very good to work with us, so it's nothing against, it's nothing to do with Bob.
No,
So what helping us get it resolved.
I will tell you, Bob has been super attentive, responsive, but, yep, Councilmember Conley wants to.
Andy, can you walk us through how you see the estimation for the sale of electrical power?
It maps to the street, but almost identically to the street light utility account for next year. Because the credit's almost $1 million. So the way it's structured in the budget, that was a conversation with both the state and Bonadeo as to how you actually account for this, because it's kind of it's different kind of accounting, and you would think it would just be zero, but it's in the governmental world, it's a revenue and expense, so that's why it's shown the way it is.
And then my other question, kind of looping back to sales tax real quick. I guess, I know you went over this last year, I'm pretty sure, but like, how do you make those calculations? Well,
So I take an average, I look at it by month. We get 19.65% of the first $80 million in receipts, and then 9% thereafter. So what I do is I go back 10 years. Formula 1 is looking at the average by month. Formula 2. So you take the average and then I push it out to what I think the average will be in 24. Then I take the history of there's forecast formulas in Excel. Formula 2 is a forecast formula. Then I took an annual average, annual forecast, so then step 3 was annual average, annual forecast. And the fourth was I had a conversation with the county as to where they thought this thing was going. Kind of blended it all together and then took it, and then that is a conservative number, 20.5. Or something in the upwards, 20.5, 20.6 million, most calculation. It's my least favorite revenue. You have no idea where it's gonna go.
Sounds like a bunch of hours.
It's enjoyable.
And Andy, when is the sales tax agreement? When does that expire? When's that up?
Several years. Not any time soon.
And I apologize, going back there, the utilities received tax. You bumped it up even though 525.
So when I did the 525 last year was before we had final numbers for 22. The 650 comes from 22 actual and what we're seeing in 23.
Where are we? Last year, we had the third quarter, so we were able to track it a little better.
We're at 484 right now. We get payments through February. They get booked back to the prior year.
And Andy, is there a reason the franchise fee, you're stating going down?
It's 600 was a little aggressive for this year. It's really running static to some degree at right around 5.
Okay, and then, I noticed the general services IDA. We don't really go over IDA, so if you don't mind touching on that, you want to bump it up 50.
That's a staff reimbursement for various city employees who work on the IDA as well. That amount was discussed and agreed upon between myself and former commissioner before he left. I believe the agreement came forward this year that had bumped it up slightly. Of course, Steve left, we brought that to the council. And said we go to 150 to 24.
Okay. And then, Andy, if you don't mind, our lovely, Troy Redevelopment Foundation, any talk, to bump that up or, no?
Not
discussion?
to my knowledge.
Okay. That's on page, 9 for folks under miscellaneous, yeah. And I know, pretty much all the others, I believe, are under, their appropriate, department. The one thing I did want to ask Andy, if you don't mind, with the public utilities, do you mind having a breakdown of the lead replacement program?
The status of where we are.
Yeah, just how many homes, how much, we did get one, council member Soriento had a meeting and we got an update, but by the time our next meeting, it'll probably be helpful. Okay.
I will try to have that for Tuesday, if not. Well,
Yeah, you're busy, I get it. If you don't mind. I'm fine. And then I think all the other ones are under their department, so we'll jump to your office, and then we're done.
Chair, question.
Yes, council member.
And I noticed the revenue for non-being property, recovery, that zero again, this year, that, we're not getting any more funding there.
Those are really one-time settlements that come in that you don't know when, you don't know how much. It's dependent upon the litigation settlements.
Are we doing the zombie properties in the city treasury? We have cases going against people that have the zombie properties out there.
That's a question I would defer to the planning
And the law.
meeting.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I have a ton of questions. We could sit here all night, but we'll wait for the appropriate committee. Yeah, you sure? But in prior years, we would, and we would be here for a good 5 hours. It's right, Andy?
It's early.
I know,
You want
All
to
right.
start with council swing?
sorry. I'm sorry,
No, can you start with the council swing?
no, yes.
Walking, yeah, rules are.
All right. We're going to hit the council, to be council. It's very, very, very. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of things. but- No, please, please. So as you see, we are keeping everything status quo. Page 16, sorry. And, the neighborhood improvement program continues to thrive. Andy will talk about the bump with the auditor. We extended it a year, so that's why that went up instead of 2 years to 3 year. And we improved the bond deal, under consulting services. Yep. Yes, Councilmember Go.
I think there were quite a few times over my terms where the council could have respectively done very well with their own legal advice, legal attorney. And I think that, because I think you put a lot of pressure on Rick a lot of times to be between the administration and the council. And I don't think that that gives the transparency that we want to get and the clarity we want to get, because there's just so much for there. I think we should think about that. I think that instead, and I know that, then you get this minority, majority thing, oh, we want our attorney, you got your attorney, but I think that what we should do is have an attorney that represents, the who represents. And it has fiduciary duty with locking into that, by his association bar to represent the entire council. I don't think we need two. I think we need one. But I think we do need one, because I think, the important a lot of changes. Coming in, you know, the past couple years. So I would suggest that we consider that forward with our budget.
Sure, I welcome you to look at funding and all that good stuff. I will,
I mean,
saying that when I was on the city council, back in the mid to late 90s, once again, age of 15. But at that time, I was a district council member and I was the sole Republican council member at that time, and there was a 9-member council. So it was 8-1. But I will tell you, when I came into office, the city council had both a majority and a minority council. It helped certainly, especially like Councilmember Gully states in times where the corporation council, for the most part, like 90% of the time was not conflicted. But there were those few times, like we have seen through Harbor Point, it's been a little challenging. Because the corp council, at the end of the day, he's working for us and through the charter, but at the end of the day, he is appointed by the mayor, and he is the mayor, the executives corp council. We were paying the minority and the majority council at that time $10,000, and it was on an as-needed basis. I did find it helpful, but I will tell you, midway through at that time, let's just say it was different times, and the majority of the council took away my council. So I was without a corporation or a legal council, so legislative council, they called it. So unfortunately, for like 4 or 5 months, I did have a legislative council, and they had their legislative council, but then they wiped out the minority legislative council. So saying that, I would definitely, for the next city council look within the budget to potentially, put some money aside. I don't know, but legislative council would ask for maybe 15, 20 on an
I do believe the charter does provide
It
for
does,
one for each.
yeah, it's the money,
Certainly. Devil's in the detail.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, it allows, but it's up to the council if they want to find that money. So, yikes, I hope it didn't break. So, the city council, budget is pretty status quo. Andy, I did mention the, consultant that we bumped it from a 2-year to 3-year, correct? And that was the increase.
Yeah, so the contract is 3 years with the option, 2 1-year renewals. The 62.5 is based off the new contract that was approved by the deal, as we discussed that night.
65.
Yeah, 60, I'm sorry, 65, that's all 3 audits. I can't speak highly enough of Bonadeo. They do not charge us to call them, which is pretty uncommon.
Huge.
And quite right, I mean, the price is up. That's still very reasonable from my understanding of what a municipality of our size costs.
No, they've been fabulous. Okay,
Council President,
yes, Councilmember Lynn.
and well, I do think, and I know that we've had conversations with council members over time, that the salary that we're paying for the amount of hours in. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has ever run their own personal numbers, but it's like $3 to $10 an hour with no health insurance then. And I do think that it is a barrier to getting people to be interested in running for office, serve their community in that way. You know, it's more than a part-time job, and I think all of us experience that. And, you know, I think with the majority of the council, it's probably an appropriate time to really look at a salary increase for across the board for city council. And for looking at seeing if health insurance or a health insurance buyout might be something that's feasible. I think it eliminates not having access to health insurance means that a lot of people who might be interested in the position, that's a motivation. You know, we have to acknowledge that if people have kids, there's childcare costs when our meetings run a little long. And we pay out of our own pockets for our time on the phone, the stuff that we end up printing for constituents, our own equipment that we use, reimbursement for mileage. So I think that before we get a final copy, I think we do need to have a conversation about one of the last increase was 2010, 2010,
Where did that get?
Like 13. I think it was when, the, term limits went into place. I want to say, I wasn't here obviously, but I want to say back in maybe 2010, 2012, I don't know. Yeah, right around.
yeah, I mean, if you do not compensate people fairly for the work they do, they don't do the work. And I think that's something that's we're running into. You know, I think people are running into the workforce, and I think we do need to have a conversation about that dollar amount of fees, when we find the money, that's the hard work that we have to do, but. You know, I think some kind of a percentage increase that's consistent with what we're giving other city employees. Even if the one shot, it has been 13 years with no increase. So. I'll say it.
All right, so, yes, Councilmember Conley was,
I just was curious about what the training line was. Doesn't look like we've used it. like for the account, $20,000, but. what
Yeah.
that was for, but-
Yes, in the past, NICOM, is been used for New York Conference of Mayors. Because they have entry, training for, elected officials. I know it was used in the past, but it hasn't been capitalized on in recent years from what I'm aware. of. Yeah, I paid my own, so. But it's there and, you know, I would hope if anyone was interested, they would tap into. Do you want to let the mayor go, Andy, or, Mayor, do you want to go through your budget, please?
Sure.
Awesome. And then, we'll give Andy and Gabrielle, but it's like, if you just stay there, you're fine.
So, I think what I'll do is start off by giving you a quiz on how the tax cap is calculated. But it will be open book. All right, so there's really not much to talk about here. This is status quo budget. I don't feel that the mayor should be proposing changes in the mayor's office when he or she has 1 foot and 8 other toes up before. Our budget increases in here really are limited to the things that Andy spoke of earlier, the code 8 expenses, pension, health insurance, and dental insurance. Salaries are down a little bit. And let me, before I get into that, let me say that we did leave the diversity position in the budget. There were a number of reasons that I did not move forward with that this year. But I do believe that it's an important position, and I do believe the next mayor should have the option of should have the access to those resources to pursue that goal, whether it be through an employee or another means, as we were speaking with Khalil James about. So I would like to see that stay in there. There is salary savings in the salary line because I don't feel that someone who comes in the door is going to fill that position immediately. So that's deferred. That position is deferred for a couple of months on the salary schedule. You'll see salary savings that relates to that position. Therefore, the salary line is down over last year. If you look at code 100 on page 21, you'll see 369,794 in this year, 351,294 next year. There are no increases proposed in the salary, and the difference is, as I indicated, salary savings. All other lines, you'll see code 3 remains the same, code 4, which is postage, advertising, et cetera, remains the same. And then the code 8 items do see a significant jump. Again, that's pension, health insurance, and dental insurance.
And actually, health insurance went down dramatically.
Change and cover.
Okay.
Oh,
No, yes, it went down 3,000.
Councilmember
yes.
Soriano.
So I see a decrease in the longevity. I don't know. Decrease of $1,000. That for them.
Departure of the previous deputy director of public information, who was here for over 5 years. So he would have got longevity.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Chair? Yes, Councilmember Conley was.
I'm gonna harp on, last year we got rid of the grant writing specialist. Do you guys consider, putting that back in, just because I know that there are several, public utilities are looking for, some grant money, there's other departments that could probably benefit from grant writing. Did you guys think about that at all?
So I can speak to what that the position had not been funded for several years. So we took it, I mean, it was unfunded going back to last year. Unfunded in 22, unfunded in 23. It just, we removed it from the document.
So I think that's a decision that the next mayor should make. When I came in, I was a strong advocate for hiring a fundraiser grant writer. And we did hire a grant writer. But I did find that the grants that were available to the various departments, police, fire, DPU, were very specialized grants, and that individuals who work in those departments were very adept at completing those grant applications. So it did not seem as though we were getting value for the money, because we already had those skills in place. We did get some grants related to recycling and matters regarding solid waste. But then when we hired staff in that arena, they too were very adept at securing those grants. So it could be looked at, should be looked at by the next mayor. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea. I just didn't find a way to make it viable.
Yeah, I guess, my kind of thinking of it is, well, a grant writer is going to bring in the revenue, so that would kind of, you know, offset it, I guess, in a way. And, you know, I think we've heard in several meetings, from our departments that they struggle with meeting the requirements to submit, just keeping track, like I'm thinking about public utilities, keeping track of all the, you know, quote unquote red tape that goes along with.
That is a problem, but that's on the other side of the grant. So that's after you've received the grant. The grant writing, and in fact, the state makes it pretty easy for, I'm thinking of grants to the police department, grants to DPU. I mean, they make it, those applications are not complex. It's not like the grants you're used to writing or I'm used to writing, but the reporting requirements are very challenging.
Yeah, so,
To track and monitor, and that's a job within the respective department, because the knowledge that's necessary to complete those.
okay, I guess, I think I disagree a little bit. I think
Yeah.
having a grant writer that could also support with reporting, I think that makes sense. I don't know if that's, if there's a specific role for that's different than grant writer, but I think that seems to be something that we're lacking, and something that could help us really bring in a lot of money to the city, because we're, you know, socially disadvantaged, you know, a lot of minorities, we're on the environmental justice, like track, like everywhere in the city, like we really, I do think, like, if we're really going to call this like a neighborhood reinvestment budget, we have to actually be investing in our community in that kind of way, you know?
So I don't disagree. I think, you know, there's grant writers and there's grant administrators. They're a little bit different skill sets. You might find somebody that has both. But again, it should be something that the next mayor decides to pursue, not me.
And, you know, if I could, Councilman.
I had one other question.
Go for it.
Sorry, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit today. The director of diversity and inclusion, can you just kind of explain why that was never filled? I know you had a candidate earlier this year. I guess I'm having a hard time kind of understanding why we keep that position if, you know, we're not gonna bring in a grant writer.
So in conversations with Fred Miller, he was not so keen on the idea, and he was proposing alternatives, which we began to flesh out. But you know, by that time, we were 6 months into the year, and frankly, I was running out of hours in each day to focus on it. I didn't have a place to put the person. I knew that I was leaving. Maybe the next mayor should be the one who makes a decision whether they go with along the lines of something Fred was discussing, or along the more traditional lines. It felt to me as though it's a decision that I should refer to the next.
Can you elaborate a bit more about what Fred Miller was proposing? I guess I'm not quite following.
More of a citywide focus as opposed to just Troy City government. And is there an appetite in the community to band together these efforts and market and understand how we attract individuals who are less represented in our various workforce, because we're not the only ones who struggle with this. How we attract and retain individuals who are not equally represented in our various workforce. So there's more of a collaborative citywide effort, and it has some interest in the community. Though it's still very vague and not well formed yet. But Fred's a pretty smart guy, but we give him the benefit of the doubt. And we can more. But as the year went on, it became clear that it's probably not fairly my decision to make.
Yeah, I guess, I kind of see there's not much diversity within the city of Troy, like the government. Like, I'm the only Black person here, like in this room, and I often am, so I think starting with like the diversity and equity within the city is going to attract diversity within people, wanting to like seeing themselves here. And I do think, there is something to be said to promote and welcome our business owners, our, I think we try and do it here. I know you guys do it with the ribbon cuttings for like the businesses, the community members of color, of other backgrounds and diversity, but I think, I do think a balance of both probably makes the most amount of sense. And I think there are a lot of folks in the city who have these skills. I think maybe they're not being pursued, or maybe they don't see themselves in the city. So I think there's a cultural aspect that is, I think, lacking. I think I've seen kind of it evolve since I started my term, but I don't think it's like to a degree where a lot of folks like my age or in my circles even really think about working here. I have a question.
I think some really good points on both fronts, and, I like the idea of both inner and outer, because, I think one of the things that we talked about with Fred was just the fact that, folks don't think about becoming a city council member in, circles all throughout our neighborhoods, and folks don't think to apply for a particular job. So I think you're right, Councilmember Conley Wilson, but I do agree both inner and outer needs to happen a better job really reaching out to our neighborhoods, all of our neighborhoods. I think on the grant writer, what I'd also like to see, because the grants for the state especially have changed so much under the consolidated funding application. They have, as the mayor mentioned, become very focused, very intense. But at the same time, very specialized. One of the things, when I worked for an engineering firm, they actually did, as you mentioned there, both project management and grant writing. So it was a grant writer / also a grant coordinator person. And they did this at a very inexpensive expense, and actually worked particularly solely for a city. Like, for instance, Half Moon has an engineering firm who coordinates their grants, writes their grants. It's a very inexpensive payment that Half Moon does this for, because at the end of the day, if that grant writer is successful getting that grant, potentially that firm, will potentially have more of a leg up in that job, even though they procure it, do all, the ABCs, dot I's, cross the T's, but it does give them, a bit of an advantage to work with that municipality. So I actually, would like to also look at that aspect, because they have worked for other municipalities and they've been very successful obtaining grants. And you know, when you did have the grant writer, I do recall that the grant writer was having a tough time because our departments were spearheading the effort. And the grant writer per se was not writing all the grants, maybe it's not, you know, so anyway, I'd like to look at, you know, that aspect if the council was interested. But-
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Mann.
Yeah. Talking with the director of diversity, equity and inclusion, I mean, this has been in the budget now for, since 2021, and we haven't hired him. Which kind of begs the question of how serious are we about hiring this position? You know, especially post 2020, certainly a lot of people are passionate about this and would be looking for work, you know, in the field. So, while I respect the fact that you're keeping it in the budget, I do kind of question if there was ever any intention of hiring. And, you know, it's also a position that in reading the position description has both HR functions and economic development functions. Those are, but it's in a political appointment role. And so how do you keep the continuity from administration to administration if you have a position that doesn't have union protection and is doing two very different roles? And for $70,000, which is a very low salary. So, you know, I think there's, again, that what we pay people shows respect for the work that they're doing. So if we're asking for all of these things, you know, to try to make government more accessible to easily underserved or marginalized communities, like are we trying to do economic development? Are we trying to improve the culture within city government, the HR function, and economic development function? And again, it's a position that has no protection if the political winds change. And it certainly, you will run into something along the timeline where that person is put in a very uncomfortable position. And so, you know, maybe given the amount of money we have, using a consultant that is having something consistently to reach the community and as well as, and then empowering our HR department to offer more training. You know, maybe that's the way we can actually fill the position, get the service stuff. And what's the point of having money if you're not getting the services out? Help. We're waiting for the hire. We're not getting the job done. So, you know, maybe this is the year. This is the year where we look and assign money for a consultant that actually is out there in the community, building that bridge and putting more money into our HR department for a grant writer to bring in more resources so that those functions are being filled rather than symbolically funding a position that's not going to get.
Any,
So, you know, fine discussion to have with the next mayor. I just don't think I should chart.
Well, you're still the executive.
I just don't think that I should make that decision for the next executive who is going to live with this. That's a great discussion.
It's not a union position. The next mayor could let you go.
thank you, Councilmember Mann. We're going to move to Councilmember Soriento, and then I would ask that we get roll.
Is this position, competitive? Is there, like, has there been an exam order for it?
No.
No, it's not competitive. Has it been approved by the state on that?
I don't believe it's received approval yet.
Okay, so technically it is competitive. So what if the state comes back? So the state
I mean, it's basically a gamble also with this position, because the state could very well come back and say, sure, it's gonna come out of the competitive class and go into exam, or they're gonna say no. And then what happens? Then we have to order the exam for this position. So they will have 75 rates on it, but, just wanted to understand the whole picture about, the background about this position.
So the picture right now is that I feel that there should be money in the budget for the next executive to decide how they want to use it to advance this goal. Whether they want to hire a consultant, whether they want a tested position, a protected position, that should be their decision as to how they want to move this initiative. I just put the money in the budget because I think they want to have the resources to make those decisions when they assume office.
All right, yeah, I mean, I get it, I get that. So going back though, when this position was first created, and not really, I mean, did anyone ever fill this position?
Yeah.
So have you ever, have you ever tried any advertisements on it?
Yes.
Have you reached out to any colleges, universities,
Yes, we did outreach.
maybe even try like an internship program with it? With this position? Has that ever been?
Yes, we reached out, but I'm not sure why we're having this discussion. I'm leaving it for the next executive to make decisions about how they should proceed on this. I had a vision, wasn't executed, but the resources ought to be there for the next person to execute their vision.
Okay, and I think, I think my questions are really important because I want to know how important this job is being funded $70,000 a year, but not filled. So I think that my discussion with you, my questions with you are legitimate. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. That's why we put it in here, because, we could have eliminated it and made it more difficult for the next administration to proceed along this way. I think it's an important initiative. I think it deserves more time and discussion in the community. And I want to make sure the resources are there for the next administration to have that discussion.
Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you wholly. Here's the problem. As we have a transition and change in Troy, we have to be aware of what we need to kind of be able to communicate, bring everybody up in the same path. I think this position is very important. And I think it's honorable you not try to fill it in a rush, but in terms to leave it for the next executive director, whoever that may be, that they have an opportunity to have choices, talk with Fred Miller, see the options, so that they can really make a good decision before just jumping in just to say we need it. We know we need it, but how and what that methodology is to bring that person to the table, whether it be citywide or in City Hall, I think is a good idea. Leave that the next administration will have 4 years picking up, because when we change mayors, it doesn't change the city. We pick it's like a handoff in football. You take it from where it is and you keep moving forward. So it's very unique to do this, and I'm glad you're doing it. And I think it is necessary. And I think the next executive should look into how they utilize that funding to do the purpose it was intended.
And once again, I'm in a very unique position, full disclosure, obviously, I'm running for mayor. But the one thing I would just ask the mayor, there were some good people who did apply recently, if you could just acknowledge receipt of their resume, that would be great, because they've reached out to me and I feel very uncomfortable because obviously, it's your decision, but if someone could at least, we've received your resume, et cetera, et cetera. I think that would be, respectful. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, questions? Mayor, anything else?
Okay.
Andy.
No.
Bailey.
Page 25.
All right.
And for those who don't,
I do apologize, auditor did not change, so just that department, sorry. Okay, thank you.
before I get started, for those who don't know, this is Gabrielle Mahoney, who is, used to be personnel officer and now chief account clerk, who has done wonderful work since transitioning.
How do you like it, Gabrielle? Oh, gonna be a good change and, yeah, cool.
So, actually, if I can go back to page 19, we can cross that one off the list, I suppose, if you want. Municipal court,
Gonna do that through general services. Cool.
so
Really?
budgeted $100,000 for that, that's entirely offset by revenue, 100% reimbursable, so. Now. Pushing the envelope on the appropriation, because we have spent $68,000 to start the year. And is fully encumbered for the remainder of the year. Estimated to be $100,000 for the $100,000 revenue offset, so it's entirely net neutral for the budget, but that is why. It is now $100,000.
Mandy, if I recall, that was mandated, right, by the state, I believe, or was it OC?
The mandate, I think the mandated was when we had built
Gotcha.
court facility that was not reimbursed.
Got it. Thank you.
Page 25, which I'll actually go to 27. Decrease of one position. The very. For the most part, I'll say every department we're gonna go through tonight is status quo. You will see -1 on page 27 for the account clerk. That we did not abolish the position in January. The former superintendent of public utilities and I had re-envisioned water billing. Not get too far into the weeds, the meter readers, the meter readers fall under the purview of DPU. We had 2 employees doing water billing in the comptroller's office. Where Chris and I felt that there's front end work for billing that involves the meters, but if all the meter purview falls under the operations of DPU and not so much finance, let's split the billing process for water out so that there's a point in there of when it switches over from reads to when it switches from gallons to dollars. It's really when it transitions from DPU to finance. So the account clerk position that's -1 in here was actually moved to DPU administration. And then what you will see in return is that there's a decrease in the payment from the water fund to the general fund for services. So we did not abolish a position. We transitioned it over for reflect operation. What we did. The salaries have fluctuated this year. We've had a lot of departures, a lot of retirements of very key positions. But yeah.
I do, but I'm going to finish.
Then there are 2 new titles in the budget itself. Payroll technician and payroll supervisor. We used the salary savings that existed from the departures to reclassify titles to reflect the work that was being done there. Other than that, it's status quo. Salary changes other than that are contractual and/or step increases.
Councilmember Soriento?
For the payroll clerk and head account clerk positions reclassified to payroll supervisor and payroll technician,
Yes.
and that's why they're zeroed out.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Good catch, that's good. If I may, don't kill me. Where are we with our payroll, electronic and Cronin?
We gotta get back to PS about where we stand.
Been a
Yeah,
long
I'll say this, generally speaking. And I would love to have it. The amount of turnover, and this is a reality, not meant to be an excuse. The amount of turnover we have had this year in comptroller's office. You know, Sharon and Albert have done yeoman's work from that retirement on that they didn't never ask for help. Until they recently filled the other position. What personnel has done this year, where they've had a vacancy, they have another new vacancy, and they have had a person out on leave since January. Never complained, and you state status quo, comptroller's office, that staff deserves a ton of credit. With the, Gabrielle transitions over, replaces the chief account clerk who left. The accountant position has been vacant, hopefully will be filled in the next 7 days. But we lost the senior demo position, filled it, then that person left, went vacant again. I mean,
I know.
we've been, that, so it has been pushed back because of that.
You know what I think we
And
need?
then, and I do want to know one other thing.
Yep.
Retirement has changed their reporting, so payroll had to come off of Kronos as well, so we could meet their reporting deadlines. So we want to get back to it. Now that now the budget's out, we're in the hearings, gotta get through quarterly report. ARPA reports due at the end of the month. Then hopefully we can get back to time clocks sometime soon. We're working on integrating the accounting system to Kronos, which is we're in a very, very old accounting system. So to build that program is not a normal process. So all those components are what is unfortunately the delay.
Can you do us a favor, Andy? I know that this is probably going to be a little challenging, but there's so many things that the council has approved during my tenure. And I know, losing department heads and IT huge, so I know a number of projects have taken steps backwards, but for me, I mean, I was laying in bed the other night, and things go through my head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we approved this, we approved that, and where is this, and where's that, and, Kronos obviously is top of that list, so, at some point, I think we need to know just a number of things that were approved and where they stand.
Are you asking in relation to like bond resolutions or the ARPA projects or all of the above?
All of them. I won't get into it, but yeah, after the. So, but anyway, Kronos.
That's that, and I do want to take the time to thank staff. Why I go down that path.
No, please. Yep. And, I know you've had a number of challenges and I know personnel, some people are out on leave and I know there's a
And
lot.
we're getting back to full strength. Getting there, all set. That's health. Yeah. They deserve a ton of credit.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep, council member.
But Andy, you will have that up and running in 2024, am I right? Based on our fire compensation. They're going to be up and running and moving.
Well, besides the non-rep, so I'm using the clock, right? I've been using the clock for several months now. I hope by the end of 2024, you'll have a parking unit. Budget. How about that?
So would I. So would
So
I.
like 14-month goal. I'm sorry.
Put it in my book already, that's why I remember that, I got it written.
And do you think, something could be done really quickly, just have computerized time sheets? I mean, just do them online, we've had those for 25 years over in the Senate. Well, fine.
All because of the accounting system we use, that program that they're trying to build.
Yeah, we appropriated money.
As of right now. With the way payroll is structured, there's no importing function into our accounts. At all. it's. The collection and payroll and billing software is incredibly archaic.
But we did put money aside for that.
Chair.
Are you?
Yeah.
Council members, sorry.
What happened to the new world? You guys were,
I knew what happened with that. I don't remember,
To like, create like invoice entry badges and purchase orders, requisition, purchase orders.
it was tied to the FRB grant for shared services and that shared services
Oh.
component fell through. It was entirely contingent upon that.
Really good program that you guys should maybe look into.
But we got as far as demoing it and
And it even helps with budgeting too.
it's phenomenal software. The money that was there to use fell through because of that shit. It was all tied back to for hosting. That's where it all fell apart.
Chair? Yes, council member Conley Wilson.
You mentioned how, this question, that we have a really archaic billing system. Do you have like an idea of how much that would be to switch to something else? That is like.
I think we had thought at the time about $1 million. We have we're in a complicated situation with our accounting system where because we are both the collecting entity and the foreclosing entity, it's very specific software for it. So for example, the New World program that we just talked about did not have all the modules we would have needed to maintain our finances. So we were to the point that we were looking at subsidizing those, like the collection module wasn't part. So we were looking at how we can get another module to integrate back. But it is incredibly niche to be the collecting entity and the foreclosing entity in the accounting that's required for those types of transactions.
Do you know what, like Albany or other municipalities do?
I know what they use out of like Albany specifically, I'm not sure. I know that we're actually at 2 different systems right now, both from the same manufacturer. I know that there are a number of local governments who use the software we use for general ledger and budget and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There are some in Albany County. The difference is that they're not the foreclosing entity, so that they don't have to carry. They don't have to carry the accounting and the workload that we do. That's really where the differentiation comes in, is that collection piece of that.
And then, in terms of the account, the billing for the TPU and the account clerk, is that position in DPU, do you know if that position in DPU is still open or is it?
It's built.
It's
So we got rid of we transferred we comptrollers removed the account clerk. We decrease the enterprise transfer, it goes over to the water. He takes the account clerk position, which is a grade 5, and creates a radio dispatcher position, which is also a grade 5. So that's the position swap. Then reclassified a title. He reclassified a title for the billing person to make it an equal to senior account clerk or principal account clerk. I can't remember which one we did, but that was what we did. So it's the new radio dispatcher, either 8310 or 8330. That was the swap for the account.
Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you. Yes, council member Gully.
Andy. Is there a value in the investment of $1 million to straighten up that system and bring something in? Is the savings and the value long-term more of a benefit than spending $1 million now? I mean, is it gonna save us enough to make the investment worthwhile?
I say no to that, and if my staff, if comptroller's office staff is watching this, or treasurer's office staff is watching this, I say no to that question. They're not coming to work.
Well,
That-
they can work a little, I'm just trying to say dollars and cents, brother, dollars and cents.
That's
Is it worth the investment for long term to put the city on a path that the employees will be able to get more responsive things done if we have this program. It's worth the investment for $1 million.
I'll say two things about that. The first is the collection software, the billing software, and the payroll software is DOS based. You don't use your mouse. That's all. There's a significant, yes, there is a significant lack of support for our accounting system. I would like to see the city at some point go paperless. I think that creates. Just think it's, you could go paperless with purchase orders. So instead of a paper floating around from DPU to City Hall to go to the auditor's office, to then go to the mayor's office, to then go to purchasing, it would just be sent electronically around. So you would have greater efficiencies for all these departments for approval. From what I've seen in New World, they went paperless, and my understanding, they went paperless like that. They did. Within months, they went paperless. They scanned in their invoices and they don't pass around paper. You been account, you still filing cabinets to the comptroller's office?
Trust me, I've been in a lot of, see a lot of.
Andy, though, we did appropriate money to begin, if I recall, during Flynn.
Yes, so we appropriated our ARPA money for new timekeeping and accounting system.
Right.
We made it that you cannot convert. I've done in a prior job, a timekeeping conversion and an accounting conversion. And we kind of overlapped it. You cannot, do that. That does not work. So what we decided to do was lead with Chronos. And then flag it so that you do the accounting system thereafter. Because it really was chicken or the egg, we'd say timekeeping is much more important. I don't know which one's more important. I would argue timekeeping is because it's entirely paper, the turnaround time alone that we have on paper. And then do the accounting system. That's just wording from sins of the past where we did those conversions.
Andy, I appreciate that answer, and you're right, we do need to look at this and modify our system. I mean, we have some departments that can't even transfer calls to the departments they need to go to because the system doesn't transfer calls. I mean, it's like pigeon service to send a message, and it's just not right. I'm really surprised. We have computers with no mouse.
No, the computers have a mouse. You can't use the key. They're not used. The system does not support a mouse to be used. All the F1, F2, F3, that's what we gotta use to use it.
We've been talking about this for a long time now, and there has been money appropriated. It's COVID obviously, took a hit, stopped a lot of progress. I mean, I felt when we appropriated the money, things were moving forward and stopped, and we got progress reports, and it's just kind of stayed stagnant, very frustrating.
We completely agree.
Chair?
Yes.
I just have one last question. Andy, do you know of any funding sources or anything like that for updating, aside from ARPA? I don't know if there's any other for updating our technology.
Not that I'm not specific of finance. Right now, I've never heard of that.
I'll take a look. I feel like there's got to be
Chair, Council Member Mitt.
And you know that some of our cybersecurity updates help with our insurance rates. And, are there other sort of savings that, not just from efficiencies, but having timekeeping systems that are protect people's confidential information more that our insurance company put a dollar value on?
Probably. There are times we have to mark no on the cybersecurity questionnaire. It's tough to mark no on. We're so big on internal controls. But I also don't want to have the perception to be that employees personal information on that system is not secure because it is, not gonna would we have not had an issue in that regard. So. I'm sure there is, I don't know how much monetary, I mean, the cybersecurity policy in relation to the other policies is a drop in the bucket. It's the- Your cost exposure on insurance really comes in the liability.
Yeah.
bucket.
I had before this meeting, I had a conversation with a constituent who's in cybersecurity. She was looking at our website, she's like built in WordPress, and it's not. That some of the convenient features that are in it open us up to cyber. And so, you know, the ability for us to check that box, yes. I think it certainly goes a lot broader, but
I think, you know, Quinn and his predecessor Warren really did. And that's not to say other areas, just speak to the financial, really did a very good job of locking down like, with servers. Firewalls and things of that nature are the financial. Because we carry a ton of a lot of people's personal information, both employees and taxpayers and things.
Okay, I opened up a can of worm with Cronus, but, a necessary conversation. Thank you, Andy and Gabrielle. All right, let's get back here. Yep.
So all other accounts and comptrollers either kept the same or dropped them slightly from next year. Page 32, treasurer's office. Salary changes are contractual based off of CSEA. And all other lines were kept the same or slightly decreased. Okay, any questions? I had to go very quickly.
No,
through this,
you're
so.
good. There is the one vacant in town clerk, or was that one swapped?
Still, there is a vacancy right now in treasurer's office. Once the list is established for account clerk, we will look to fill up that.
Okay.
We will look to fill that.
Councilmember Sorienton.
What happened over the years with, on the,
33,
yeah,
that's the
there
treasurer.
used to be like 6 account clerks.
So we're down to. We've had that for. Like 14 maybe, 15, right? I think when I came to the city in 13, there were 3 in a part-time. I know there was a part-timer that, I think there were 3 from what I remember. And got the same sense,
Wow,
yeah.
Scary.
yeah.
Page 35. Purchasing. Again, salary changes are contractual and we kept the lines. Purchasing.
Andy and I recall, last year, the senior account clerk was put in, right?
2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, you know, when it was 2, it was vacant and that was filled last year. Okay, yep. Who's our purchasing agent?
Nancy Biscuits.
Okay, that's what. Yep, Councilmember Conley Lister.
For procurement, the office supply line. I'm just trying to understand for the first 6 months.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it used to be an inventory, so for you, if you look back for years. We were buying all city off, 90% of city office supplies out of that account and then dispersing it out to the other departments. So that negative 550, so we changed how we account for office supplies this year, where we now charge departments direct. That negative 559 you see in the first 6 months is essentially there was inventory held in her office supplies that we moved out to other departments. So if you look at all 301s in the aggregate, it balances out to the actual amount paid in the year. And then changing it, we just reverted it back to 5. Similar thing for postage, where all postage gets charged to purchasing, and then we disperse it out to the other departments as they use it.
Good question.
Good.
Yeah. We are now moving to personnel. Page 50.
Page 50. I will know we have cleaned up the 409 names, so you know what? Now, first one, that they are actually what they're for, not random names that are assigned in years past. Yeah, kept everything status quo. If you look at the personnel page, you'll see personnel, 2 personnel associates, 2 personnel techs, and a personnel officer. Personnel officer is currently the position, provisional pending test. So there's an unfunded personnel associate that would be in the event that the personnel officer, well, hopefully not, that person has to revert back. We don't want that person to revert back. So very good.
I was going to have our new personnel. Very good. Gabrielle would know. Councilmember Gomez.
So I know it's a difference in payroll if they don't qualify in a practical position. What happens then? Because we have to pay in scale, right?
Right. It's 0 because we're hoping that the person not being back. So should
Guys can vote and study the test.
we need them to call the test. We need them to call the test. We need them to give the exam.
Oh, that's the way they, oh. Okay, so I have an exam, I don't think.
No, they have not taken the exam.
Don't they do like every 4 years or something like that, or you have to, just like one of we have to back.
Yeah,
You have to order the test,
we ordered it.
but don't you have to have at least 3 people take the test that haven't qualified? Don't there have to be at least 3 names on the list?
3 names on a list would make it a mandatory list.
Yeah.
But if you have one person, one candidate that signs up to take the exam, still a valid list, it's just. not-
Oh, good, I didn't know, that's good, thank you.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Andy, this was I know last year, I mean, it was this year, the health and safety coordinator that was. As a council that was voted, I mean, I don't think I voted.
You know what, it was during Monica push for that, I want to say about 4 years ago. And then it was vacant for about a year and a half, or a year, and then someone was hired. But then someone got moved to another department, I believe. Am I accurate?
I don't remember the timing there. We did have somebody that went into the position and it did not work out.
Right.
So it was vacant and then amended out of last year's budget.
I just curious, do you guys think about, like, kind of considering what happened at, I think, our last meeting, what was discussed in terms of health and safety, all that coordination and all that. My understanding is that health and safety coordinator, make sure that the buildings are safe and all that. Is that correct?
There's nothing, there was consideration, obviously, there's nothing in the budget for it. I'll let Gabrielle speak to what we do, I mean, about the importance of the position as a whole vote. On that.
So I can't say it enough that we really need someone to take the role of health and safety, and we need somebody to promote and improve the safety for our boots on the ground and everyone else that works everywhere else. These are, I mean, salaries are one thing, but the safety, am I not? I'm sorry. Salaries are one thing, but the safety of our employees and their lives, I don't know what is more important than that. Excuse me. Not clear, but We need someone to do risk assessments throughout the city, all of the buildings, everywhere that our employees work, to evaluate the need for improvement, with safety. We need someone to train our employees. It needs to be promoted. Our employees need to know that we want them to be safe when they're working. I can't advocate enough for the future.
So who takes on those responsibilities now that that position is not filled and, doesn't exist?
Well, it's throughout the city. I mean, as things come up, we find who can do them. Workplace violence was one, that the personnel office currently handles the training on. We do the risk assessment. Okay, and then when we find stuff, we need to fix them. We need someone to focus on that. And we don't have a person dedicated to the health and safety of our employees. We are handling the safety concerns that come up. But there needs to be someone that's dedicated to that, in my opinion. That is my opinion.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you, especially considering like what was brought to our attention last week. And it's not just like, I think from what I remember the concern about health and safety when we were discussing this was around COVID, but it's not just COVID, it's also making sure we're like, in compliance with the state and in compliance with, federal regulations as well. Like I can't, like, it's very important that we have this built in or like something more than what's going on now. I imagine it's overwhelming.
I appreciate you putting that concern.
Yes, Councilmember Sorian.
So, health and safety is definitely important, but as far as like the workplace violence, that should be on the department head and the unions, they have to be involved. There is a checklist. State Department of Labor, they have sample checklists. As much as, I mean, that does seem like a really good important position, but for one, it wasn't funded for a while last year. And number two, it doesn't require a full-time job though to do an evaluation for workplace violence. There are other technologies. Like there's Spectre Solutions, and what I've learned to do is, and also like compliance. So workers' comp also, they provide certain workers' comp carriers, they provide free training in-house. But also there's a program called Vector Solutions. It's got like $34 an employee. Public safety, it would entail like more in-depth, so it'll be a little bit more. And there's probably about maybe 100 different training programs in there. And you can also incorporate, so like workplace violence, it has to go based off of the work location. You incorporate your own evaluation and you can update them, you can remove them all into that program on top of it. You can also upload your policies into the training program. So therefore, when the employee actually takes this training and it's online, they have to acknowledge, the actual policy pops up before they can even receive credit in their certification for it. The policy pops up, they have to actually check off that they've seen it, they read it, they acknowledge it, and then they'll get a certification. But then you can also run a report, and there's so many different reports that you can create. Assignments that were completed by each employee, you can do it by each department. Assignments that are still outstanding. I'm just gonna say this program has cut the time in half on training. And I mean, they even provide OSHA training. They provide lockout, tagout, reasonable suspicion for drugs and alcohol for supervisors, sexual harassment awareness for supervisors. I mean, the list goes on. And I strongly urge that we looked into that program. And I will more than, I'll definitely give you all the information. It's really awesome program that I can connect you to the contacts. Yeah,
Thank you.
Right. Moving on, Andy, anything else in, personnel?
I'll do so.
Okay, let's move to vital statistics, page 117. Last but not least.
Change of permanent salaries is contractual and kept all the other lines. Whatever. That was very good. Thank you.
And the consultant services I stated were combined, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And quickly, I did notice the fee. You're bumping up a little
Yes.
from 75 to 80, that's on page 8.
Yes, and that was another one. A lot of these, looking back at the trend 21, 22, where we're at 23, justify bumping it up.
All right. Anything else, Sandy, you want to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any other council members?
Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Andy, is there any new positions or non-contractual raises in the budget? I think last time you made a nice report, is it possible to do that, or is it in here somewhere?
We can put that list together.
If you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Any other requests? Our next budget meeting is Tuesday, October 17th. We have science and technology at 6. Planning at 6:30. Obviously, these will not go according to time. And then 7 o'clock public utility. So figure we'll be out of here maybe by 8:30. 9 o'clock. Not bad. This wasn't bad. This wasn't bad. Again, before you and Gabrielle leave, I just want to say, and I think I can say on all our behalf, a very in-depth PowerPoint. We appreciate it. While me personally, I'm very frustrated at some of the projects not moving forward. I think some of your explanations and obstacles that staff have been justified, but we really want to say thank you, not just to both of you, but your team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Councilmember Conley Wilson.
In the public notice, it says all meetings will begin with preliminary hearing for residents may ask questions.
Yes, I apologize. So if any, thank you so much. If any member, and I'm so sorry, we should have done it after the PowerPoint, but at least have to see all the departments. And thank you. We actually put that in 2 years ago. So, thank you. No, thank you. So, yeah, hi, Greg, please, thank you. And I'm so sorry, I should have offered at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm actually grateful that it's happening at the end. Most of my questions. I think that between the questions about maybe conservative sales tax projections and some of the trickiness for hiring positions that I've discussed, you may have already.
Can you just speaking to that, Michael, longer? I don't know if he's here, but just in case you want to hear.
Sure, yeah.
You can lean that up.
I was just saying that between some of the more conservative sales tax projections and some of the trickiness around hiring positions, may have already arrived at my suggestion about how you could give the city council the compensation and resources to be a more representative body of the city and trend towards what aspirationally will be coming from government. So I won't launch too much into any of those things, but I did have 2 questions. Well, one is just commentary about the city clerk's office, which came up. I did want to note that there are several federal grants on the horizon that support digital archiving efforts. that I'm happy to point to anyone who's interested in towards. And what's more, recognizing that I have an extraordinary interest in public archives relative to the general public. I'm happy to help with this as a volunteer, putting those grant applications together and even probably on the programs. I say that because I think that there is, it's nobody's fault in particular, but there have been several like confusing and frustrating conversations around how the public can access documents that are really born public and just aren't for one reason or another, whether it's digital archiving or preservation of records over time in the city. And, you know, to the extent that there still are documents, that would be nice to freeze that in place now and make it more accessible, because, yeah, most of what gets spoiled really shouldn't have to be. And then my second thought is a question that doubles back to Council President and Tello's question about the marine, the revenue for the marina. I am curious if council or the administration or both have ever considered splitting the marina and the golf course, for that matter, off into enterprise funds so that they can be judged on their own merits as like revenue neutral entities. That's generally what you would do with something like that. Like you don't always get to it, especially if it's a smaller thing, but these are big things. I guess I was curious if you've ever thought about that, and if not, if the thought is that like the marina and the golf course or the golf course are thought to be like unambiguously in the public interest in the way that like, you know, a library, for instance. So just kind of teasing out that question, whether these are specific.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you. Hi, Jen.
Do we name my name?
You're fine.
Okay, thank you. I do want to echo actually, Councilmember Mann. I know I was spoken to many members of council. I've also tried to help return candidates to council. Diversity council is very little. You guys spend an awful lot of time doing work. I don't know. You know, if somebody who is qualified to do the job takes a look at it, and they are really devoted to serving the city, but they are looking to stuff their pockets on the back end, they're going to look at that job and say, this is not really worth it. County Common Wilson is a fine council member and is choosing to focus on their career because they just can't, they can't make this work by paying student loans. Steve Figueroa is starting a business. Agnes Soriento has several jobs. Is that correct? And I mean, thank you so much, but I mean, you have several jobs. Emily Mann has taken an incredible amount of time out of her own personal business to do constituent service things. You know, if you want to continue, if you want to have good quality council members, you do need to compensate them appropriately. And that might not be, I understand that everyone in City Hall needs a raise right now. I think that Troy staff is severely underpaid. Save maybe a couple of positions at the top. But I do think that at least health insurance buyout acknowledges that there are people throughout the community who want a more representative council. You know, this is a very good time to do it. Most of you are leaving council. You're looking at one, maybe two people who are going to be on council next year who are from this council. This is the right time to do it. And I think that it is an acknowledgement that city council members need to be compensated properly for the time that they spend. There are a couple of issues. Councilmember Mann again brought up the lodging tax and tracking that the total sales tax. I know that other municipalities, if you do have a lodging tax, because it's through home rule, you can track that separately. A lodging tax at 4% could add quite a bit of extra money into your general fund. That could also be steered for projects that further increase your tourism dollars if you want to promote tourism and maybe midweek tourism. That is something that, you know, a lodging tax can be diverted towards that, and that those funds can multiply. Trey has not done a very good job in the last few years of looking for new revenue sources has done a very good job with austerity, but, because I think, one council candidate said to me, if you don't change the oil in your car, your car is gonna run down. And we've had a lot of austerity, but we now need a lot of repairs. It is time to look for some new revenue sources. To that end, I would also like to point out that city council members who are spending an awful lot of time on constituent servicing might want to look at secret fix for their constituents, because you guys are spending an awful lot of time helping people navigate what the administration should actually be helping residents navigate. And I know that for a lot of you, it's a fun thing and a rewarding thing, and your constituents do, but that's not your job. Your job is to legislate. Your job is to find your revenue sources. So it might be time to take a look at a technological solution, that allows constituents to do that, and then also gives you guys better data about where problems are and what problems need to be fixed. This is not, other municipalities do this. And finally, I would like to say, and I hope that Cameron Company Wilson helps me out with this, you guys really need to update your audio visuals here. I said one of the city, one sentence thought. And they can blow it out of the water. It is not difficult. You don't need an IT director. Yeah. So please appropriate the money.
And, John, to your point on the health insurance, the council did have that right before I had started.
Yeah.
I will tell you, we had a couple of candidates, turned down running for office because of that health insurance, but they took it away, and some people actually backed out of running because of that. Yeah. Yep. So thank you for mentioning that. I will now, take the motion to adjourn. Councilmember Soriento, Councilmember Conley, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Good night, everybody.
Aye. Thank you.
Getting a lot of-